latest pictures we have. It's taking place in West London. This is happening in West London. There is an evacuation process underway. We have no word on the number of people who are in that building, no word on the injuries, but as soon as we get any information on that, we will bring it to you. If you want to keep up to date with what London Fire Brigade is saying about it, their Twitter feed is being updated regularly. They've had 2 tweets about it. About 35 minutes ago, they tweeted and said that they're currently attending a fire, and you can have a look on their Twitter feed. It's just south of Kensington Aldridge Academy and the NCS Trust, and then there's Lancaster Green, and then that's where that building is, if you know the area. If you don't, it's in West London. It's near the Westfield Shopping Mall, near Notting Hill and Lancaster Gate. We are keeping an eye on what is happening there, but we are going to move on. Oh, no. Okay, we're waiting to hear from someone who is on the scene. So until we get that person on the phone, let me just give you an update. If you're just joining us, good morning, welcome to you. There is a fire in West London, a huge fire, as you can see. These are the latest pictures out of West London. Police were called at 1:16, so about 2 hours ago, and they were called to reports of a large fire, as you can see, at a block of flats in the Lancaster West estate. It's W11, if you know your London postcodes, W11. So officers, the London Fire Brigade and the London Ambulance Service, they're currently at the scene, and there's an evacuation process underway. We have a witness who's on the phone. His name is Rio. Rio, good morning to you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Morning, Rio. Thank you so much for talking to us. Can you just explain where you are in relation to this fire and what you can see?
I'm directly opposite the building. So yeah, a lot of fire, and it's spread over to the other side. The building's completely gone.
The building is completely gone, Rio?
Yeah, so it won't survive it, basically.
Where were you when it broke out? Where were you when you realised what was happening?
I was in my kitchen at the time, and I looked out the window because I heard smoke alarms going up in the background. And then I saw the whole right side of the building was on fire.
And how close are you to that building, Rio? Just give us a sense of the geography, and how high are you in relation to that building? Because it looks quite high.
I'm about the lower end, maybe 10 buildings up. In comparison, maybe about 300 metres from the building.
300 metres, okay. So what time was that when you saw the fire?
That was about maybe 2 hours ago or so.
So what has been happening since then? Did you come down as soon as you saw the fire?
No, I stayed inside for quite some time until I went out for a little walk, and everything got blocked off. There's fire brigades on my road, police, ambulance, everything.
And tell us a bit more about that building. If it's in your neighbourhood, you must know what that building is. It's an apartment building, is it?
It's a block of flats, so people live there. And as the fire was going on, I could see people in the left side of the building still in there. So I don't think they were aware that the fire was going on, because it was all on the other side.
So can you get anywhere near the building, or there's a cordon in place?
Yeah, everything around there is blocked off.
Okay, and so can you see any people who've come down from that building, any people who've been evacuated? We've heard from the police that an evacuation process is underway.
Yeah, everyone that I saw evacuated. I can't see them anymore. They've moved from where they were stationed before.
Okay, do you have any idea where those people have gone?
No idea. I didn't see.
The London Fire Brigade is saying that there are 40 fire engines and 200 firefighters on the scene. Have you seen that number of cars and that number of people there?
They said there's 45. Won't say there's that many, but there is at least maybe 10, 15 that I can see around here.
Ria, just describe what you can see in terms of the building. The latest pictures we have show a huge fire engulfing the entire thing. What stage is it at now?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, and it's spreading. So it's going down on the left side of the building. That wasn't that much affected at the start. It's slowly going down the building.
Do you have any idea how many floors, how tall that building is?
I think it's 24.
24, did you say? 24?
Yeah, 24.
Okay. So the people who were evacuated, they've disappeared. You don't know where they are?
Yeah, they've disappeared. I can't see them anymore.
Okay, but you can still see fire brigade and firefighters around?
Yeah.
Okay, so just tell us again, Rio, you were in your kitchen when this happened?
Yeah, I was in the kitchen at the time, and I heard like the smoke alarms going off like in the distance, and because the sound was annoying me, I looked out the window, and then that's when I noticed that the building was on fire.
How fast did it spread, Rio?
It did take some time, and then they were spraying it, so that was helping maintain it, but at the moment it's just got out of control, and they can't get high enough.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. How are they trying to get higher than however far they can reach with their trucks?
They're not. It's literally, they're just spraying as high as they can get at the moment. So that's why the whole top is spread, because they haven't been able to stop it.
And so when you came out, you said you came out when you went for a walk. How many hours after it started was that?
That was at least, well, I only got back about 15 minutes ago.
So, Ria, when did you say that you saw people on the other side of the building?
That was at least an hour ago. That was way before I went for a walk. Right, so when it started to spread on the other side, I started to see lights going off, like people had actually left, and then all the lights on that side are off now.
So when you first saw it, when you were in your kitchen and you first saw it, was it on one side of the building, or where was it in terms of
where? Yeah, it was on one side of the building, and the part that is spread over to now, that part was fine and unaffected, and there was loads of people still in their houses at the time. But yeah, the fire is completely taken over that part, and it's still spreading down to the other flats.
And was there a sense of panic when you came out onto the street and everyone was had been taken out of that building?
I didn't see anyone who was in that building. Everyone who's out on the street, when I was out there, I think people who live on the road or in the area.
Okay, Ria, can you give us a sense of the area? You said you live about 300 meters from that building. What is that area like? We've been saying it's near Notting Hill, Holland Park, near Westfield, the Westfield Mall. Is it a residential area? What are the other buildings around it like?
Yeah, around here is very residential. It's a really quiet, peaceful area.
And do you know most of your neighbours? I mean, do you think you know people in that building?
I don't actually know anyone in that building.
Okay. Okay, well, Rio, thank you very much. We're going to leave it there, but thank you very much for talking to us. Before you go, very quickly, Rio, what can you see right now?
The fire is getting a lot worse, and there's a lot of smoke. It's out of control.
And in terms of around the building, what's happening around the building?
There's a lot of activity with people moving around, watching at the fire brigades and stuff, so like all stationed on my road.
Thank you very much, Rio. We really appreciate you talking to us on Sky. Thank you, and keep safe. Thank you, Rio. So that was Rio, a gentleman that we were talking to, and he says that he saw this fire, he saw it from his kitchen about 2 hours ago. He said that it started on one side of the building, and then an hour later, he had come out and had engulfed the entire building. And as you can see, these are the latest pictures that we're getting. And you can see an absolutely devastating fire. We've heard from the London Fire Brigade. They say there are 40 fire engines and 200 firefighters tackling this blaze. It's in West London. They say that an evacuation process is underway. This is a block of flats you're looking at. So there would have been people in there. It happened at 1:16 in the morning. That's when police say that they were called to reports of a large fire at a block of flats. It's in Lancaster West Estate, which is W11. Officers, the London Fire Brigade and the London Ambulance Service are currently on the scene. An evacuation process is underway. So far, we've only heard of 2 people being treated on the scene for smoke inhalation. And as soon as we get any updates on that situation in West London, we will bring them to you. We want to update you on the situation in West London, where there's a very serious fire going on. And we've just had a tweet from the London Fire Brigade. If you want to follow them on Twitter, it's @LondonFire. And they're saying crews continue to work hard at a tower block fire in North Kensington. Fire is from the second to top floor of the 27-storey building. So that's from the London Fire Brigade. They're saying it's a 27-storey building. That's what you're looking at now. It's an apartment block. It's in North Kensington, and the fire is from the second to top floor. So just to bring you up to date with what's going on, that's where it is, Latimer Road. It's in West London. That's Kensington Palace, you can see there. So the west of London, W11, if you know your postcodes. Police say they were called at 1:16 this morning, about 2 hours ago, just over 2 hours ago, to reports of a large fire at a block of flats in the Lancaster West estate. Officers, the London Fire Brigade and the London Ambulance Service are all on the scene. An evacuation process is underway. The update they've given us about people injuries is that they're aware of 2 people being treated at the scene for smoke inhalation, and that they'll bring us an update on that if there are, as to whether there are any further injuries. But this did happen at 1:16 in the morning, and it is an apartment block, a 27-storey building, according to the London Fire Brigade. So as soon as we have any information on the people who are inside that apartment building, we will bring it to you. To give you a sense of geography, this is in Ladbroke Grove. It's close to Notting Hill and Holland Park tube stations. It's near to Latimer Road and Ladbroke Grove tube stations. It's also near the big Westfield shopping centre, just over the highway from there, just over the roundabout. So at the moment, what we know is that a 27-storey apartment building is on fire in West London. An evacuation process is underway. 40 fire trucks, 200 firefighters are on the scene, and we will bring you the latest right after this break on Sky News. Good morning to you. If you're just joining us, there is a very serious fire in West London. These are the latest pictures. It's in the Grenfell apartment building tower. It's a 27-storey building. And according to the London Fire Brigade, the fire is from the second to top floor of that 27-storey building. The London Fire Brigade says there are 40 fire trucks and 200 firefighters on the scene, and that the crew are continuing to work hard to stop the fire. It's in North Kensington. It's very close to Notting Hill and Holland Park. It's in Ladbroke Grove. If you know West London, it's in Ladbroke Grove, W11. It's near the Latimer Road tube stations and the Ladbroke Grove tube stations, and it's near to the Westfield shopping centre. At the moment, we have no word on casualties. We're aware of 2 people. The police say that 2 people were being treated at the scene for smoke inhalation, but that's the only word we have on injuries. As soon as we have an update on that, we will bring it to you. If you look at what you're looking at now, that's a map of the area. So it's Lancaster West Estate. It's in West London, W11, as I said, near Notting Hill and the Westfield shopping mall, just over the roundabout from there. So according to police, they say that they were called at 1:16 UK time, so that was just over 2 hours ago, to reports of a large fire at a block of flats in the Lancaster West Estate. They've updated that, London Fire Brigade, and they say that that fire is from the second to top floor of that 27-storey building. We've spoken to one witness who says he saw it from his kitchen window at around 1 o'clock, and he said that it started on one side. This is a witness who was about 300 metres from that building. He said that it started on one side of the building, and then an hour later it had engulfed the building, and as you can see, it's a pretty serious situation they're dealing with at the moment. In terms of injuries, so far we've just heard that 2 people were treated for smoke inhalation on the scene. That's what the police are saying. As soon as they update us on any injuries, on any people from there, we'll let you know. Let's listen to, I told you that a gentleman spoke to us earlier and he told us how he saw it from his kitchen window. Let's have a listen again to that. This gentleman is called Rio and he was a witness.
Yeah, I was in the kitchen at the time, and I heard like the smoke alarms going off like in the distance. And because the sound was annoying me, I looked out the window, and then that's when I noticed that the building was on fire.
How fast did it spread, Rio?
It did take some time, and then they were spraying it, so that was helping maintain it. But at the moment, it's just got out of control, and they can't get high enough.
Well, that's what I was. That's what I was going to ask. How are they trying to get higher than however far they can reach with their trucks?
They're not. It's literally, they're just spraying as high as they can get at the moment. So that's why the whole chop is spread, because they haven't been able to stop it.
And so when you came out, you said you came out when you went for a walk. How many hours after it started was that?
That was at least, well, I only got back about 10, 15 minutes ago.
So, Ria, when did you say that you saw people on the other side of the building?
That was at least an hour ago. That was way before I went for a walk. Right, so when it started to spread on the other side, I started to see lights going off, like people had actually left, and then all the lights on that side are off now.
So when you first saw it, when you were in your kitchen and you first saw it, was it on one side of the building, or where was it in terms of?
Yeah, it was on one side of the building, and the part that is spread over to now, that part was fine and unaffected, and there was loads of people still in their houses at the time. But yeah, the fire is completely taken over that part, and it's still spreading down to the other flats.
And was there a sense of panic when you came out onto the street and everyone was had been taken out of that building?
I didn't see anyone who was in that building. Everyone who's out on the street, when I was out there, I think people who live on the road or in the area.
Okay, Ria, can you give us a sense of the area? You said you live about 300 meters from that building. What is that area like? We've been saying it's near Notting Hill, Holland Park, near Westfield, the Westfield Mall. Is it a residential area? What are the other buildings around it like?
Yeah, around here is very residential. It's a really quiet, peaceful area. Before
you go, very quickly, Rio, what can you see right now?
The fire is getting a lot worse, and there's a lot of smoke. It's out of control.
And in terms of around the building, what's happening around the building?
There's a lot of activity with people moving around, watching. At the fire brigades and stuff are like all stationed on my road.
Well, that was Rio there. You were just listening to a conversation I had with him earlier. He was a witness to what you're looking at on your screens. That's live footage from West London of an enormous fire at a 27-storey block of flats in West London. It's in Ladbroke Grove near White City. It's Lancaster West Estate, Grenfell Tower, 27-storey block of flats. Police say they were called at 1:16 London time this morning, just over 2 hours ago, to reports of a large fire at a block of flats in the Lancaster West Estate. It's in West London, it's near Notting Hill, near Holland Park, near the Westfield Mall, near White City, just to give you a sense of where it is. But that now is live footage of that building, and it looks like that building is completely gutted. It's a 27-storey block of flats. London Fire Brigade, they've been updating their Twitter feed, and they say that there are 40 fire trucks and 200 firefighters on the scene there. In terms of casualties, this did happen at 1:16 in the morning. One would assume that people would be at home, asleep in their beds. They're saying, the London Fire Brigade and the police are saying that at this stage, they are aware of 2 people who were treated on the scene for smoke inhalation, and that is the only word they have on injuries. As soon as we hear anything more, we will bring you that breaking news. London Fire Brigade says 40 fire engines are there, 200 firefighters, and that they are working hard at this tower block fire in North Kensington. They say the fire is from the 2nd to top floor of the 27 apartment building. We'll bring you all the latest right here on Sky. We're going to a break, back in a short while. Good morning to you. If you're just joining us, these are live pictures of an apartment building fire in West London. It's in North Kensington. Police were called at 1:16 this morning to reports of a large fire at a block of flats in the Lancaster West estate. This is Grenfell Tower. According to the London Fire Brigade, it's 27 stories tall, and they say that the fire is from the second to top floor of that 27-story building. We've had no word on injuries or people. They do say that an evacuation process is underway and that they are aware of 2 people who have been treated on the scene for smoke inhalation. As soon as we get an update on that, we will, of course, bring that to you. But 2 people so far are being treated on the scene for smoke inhalation. The local authority has been informed. This is the police telling us this. And the cordons are in place. And you've been advised, well, the public is being advised to avoid that area, the estate, that's Lancaster West Estate, and the surrounding area. So avoid that area, just to give you an idea of where it is. This is Grenfell Tower. It's on Latimer Road in Ladbroke Grove. There you can see Latimer Road. So this is the west of London, W11. It's near Notting Hill, Holland Park. That's Kensington Palace, as you can see, so just above Kensington Palace. It's very close to the Westfield shopping mall, if you know that huge complex there. It's just over the motorway from there. It's also very close to Portobello Road. That's also very, that's nearby. In terms of the situation on the ground there, the London Fire Brigade, on their Twitter feed, @LondonFire, they're saying that 40 fire trucks are on the scene and 200 firefighters are there. And these are live pictures to the left of your screen that you can see. It's a 27-story apartment building in West London. It's Latimer Road in West London. 27 stories, and according to the London Fire Brigade, the fire is from the second top story of that building. We spoke to a gentleman earlier who said that he saw it from his kitchen window 2 hours ago when it first started, and according to him, his name was Rio, he spoke to us earlier, he said that it started on one side of the building, and then when he went out an hour later it had engulfed the entire thing, which is obviously the situation as you can see it now. It very much looks like it has gutted the entire building. We have had no more word from the London Fire Brigade, but let me tell you what they've said this morning so far. They initially said about an hour ago that they were currently attending a fire at a tower block on the Lancaster West estate. It's just below Kensington Aldridge Academy, if you know the area, just over Lancaster Green from that. It's in North Kensington. They then went on to say, this was 47 minutes ago, that 40 fire engines and 200 firefighters were called to that tower block fire in North Kensington. And then they updated it just 18 minutes ago, London Fire Brigade, saying that crews are continuing to work hard at a tower block fire in North Kensington. The fire is from the second to top floor of the 27-story building. Let's talk now to Saffron Dior, who was a witness. Saffron, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Can you tell us where you are now and what's happening?
Oh, me, I'm in North London now, but I was driving past at the time when I noticed it was happening, and I saw one side of the block of flats completely engulfed in flames, and then I saw emergency services making their way and firefighters trying to fight it, but I wasn't close really, but it's such a big fire you can see it from quite a distance.
So were you on the street, Saffron, or where were you when you saw it happen? And what made you, what drew your attention to it? Was it, you saw on one side of the building, you said?
Yeah, I was driving, so
okay.
I wasn't near it. And what caught my attention is that you could see smoke from the sky. And then as I got closer, you could just see the complete flame. So the whole left side was in flames. Yeah, debris falling off the building.
How far away were you from the fire, Saffron? Did you drive past it?
Yeah, driving past, but I wasn't close. Probably, yeah, I was on a motorway, so it wasn't close, but you could see it.
You could see it, okay. And you saw the emergency services, you said?
Yeah, there was quite a lot on the way. We came both ways, and we saw them on the way each time. Probably about 4 or 5 police cars, 2, 3 firefighter cars, just a lot of emergency services.
Okay, and how fast did you think it was spreading?
very quickly, but because I didn't see it start, I'm not really sure. But for the whole left side to be in flames, I could see that it was a really serious fire and it was spreading to the other side. And I've heard that it's also spread to another building nearby. So yeah.
Sorry, Saffron, what did you say about the building nearby?
I saw on Twitter that apparently it spread to
okay. No, okay. Thank you. Well, there's no confirmation of that at the moment. Just to bring you up to date, this is a fire in the Grenfell Tower, 27-story apartment block. And Saffron Dio is on the phone talking to us. Saffron, you witnessed the event. What actually happened when you first saw it? And how far away, you say you weren't very close to it, but give us a sense of how far away you were from it and that you could still see it. It gives you an idea, perhaps, of how big it is.
Okay, how far away? Ooh, I'm not sure. Maybe, I don't know, could be like 500 meters. It was far away. It was far away because I was on the motorway, but because it's such a big building, you can see it from far away. You can see the smoke in the sky. You can see the flame. You have the debris going on the motorway. You have people stopping everywhere. It's caused a big scene.
So give us so you did actually go to the area around it, did you? How close did you drive? When you drove past, how close were you? Can you give us a sense of what was happening around it when it was on fire?
No, I didn't go fully close to it because I was on my way somewhere else, but I just saw that there was a lot of people around, that I wasn't nearby enough to see any drama that was by the building.
Okay, thank you. And Saffron, do you know that area at all?
No, I don't. I was just passing through and it caught my attention.
Okay, Saffron. Well, thank you so much for joining us and thank you for sharing that with us tonight. Okay, well, let's listen now to Rio, and he's a witness I spoke to earlier. He's in an apartment block about 300 meters from this, and he saw it from his kitchen when it started about an hour ago. Let's have a listen to what Rio told me.
And I heard like the smoke alarms going off like in the distance, and because the sound was annoying me, I looked out the window, and then that's when I noticed that the building was on fire.
How fast did it spread, Rio?
It did take some time, and then they were spraying it, so that was helping maintain it. But at the moment, it's just got out of control, and they can't get high enough.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. How are they trying to get higher than however far they can reach with their trucks?
They're not. It's literally they're just spraying as high as they can get at the moment. So that's why the whole chop is spread, because they haven't been able to stop it.
And so when you came out, you said you came out when you went for a walk. How many hours after it started was that?
That was at least, well, I only got back about 10, 15 minutes ago.
So, Ria, when did you say that you saw people on the other side of the building?
That was at least an hour ago. That was way before I went for a walk. When it started to spread on the other side, I started to see lights going off, like people had actually left, and then all the lights on that side are off now.
So when you first saw it, when you were in your kitchen and you first saw it, was it on one side of the building, or where was it in terms of where?
Yeah, it was on one side of the building, and the part that is spread over to now, that part was fine and unaffected, and there was loads of people still in their houses at the time. But yeah, the fire is completely taken over that part, and it's still spreading down to the other flats.
And was there a sense of panic when you came out onto the street and everyone was had been taken out of that building?
I didn't see anyone who was in that building. Everyone who's out on the street, when I was out there, I think people who live on the road or in the area.
Okay, Ria, can you give us a sense of the area? You said you live about 300 meters from that building. What is that area like? We've been saying it's near Notting Hill, Holland Park, near Westfield, the Westfield Mall. Is it a residential area? What are the other buildings around it like?
Yeah, around here is very residential. It's a really quiet, peaceful area. Before
you go, very quickly, Rio, what can you see right now?
The fire is getting a lot worse, and there's a lot of smoke. Out of control.
And in terms of around the building, what's happening around the building?
There's a lot of activity with people moving around, watching, at the fire brigades and stuff, like all stationed on my road.
So that was Ria there, a witness to what you're looking at now. That's a fire in Grenfell Tower in West London. It started just over 2 hours ago. According to Ria, that it started on one side of the building. Two witnesses, actually, that we've spoken to now. It started on one side of the building, but as you can see, it has now engulfed the building. It's a 27-storey building, according to London Fire Brigade. And they're saying that the fire came from the second from the top, second to the top floor. Yeah. Oh, okay, so it's from the second to the top floor. Now, we have been using footage from a lady called Celeste Thomas. Let's get that footage up for you. It's okay, well, we'll stay on this picture. This is the live feed. And Celeste Thomas has been speaking. She said that police were moving everyone back. And she literally lives across the road. Hundreds of people are outside, residents and families trying to find each other. Police have moved everyone back out of direct sight, but can hear crackling and debris falling. So that's from Celeste Thomas, and she says that she literally lives across the road. This is a 27-storey tower in West London. Police say they were called to an incident, reports of a large fire at a block of flats. It's in the Lancaster West estate, and police say they first got reports of this fire at 1:16 this morning, so nearly 3 hours ago now. Officers, the London Fire Brigade and the London Ambulance Services are on the scene. And London Ambulance Services, they're saying that they've sent a number of resources to that scene, including their high-risk team. We have had only two people are being treated on the scene for smoke inhalation. That's the only word we've had on possible injuries. So 2 people, according to the police, being treated on the scene for smoke inhalation. They say they are awaiting an update, and as soon as we have that, we will bring it to you. But these are live pictures you're looking at of a fire that has now been burning for nearly 3 hours in West London. It's the Grenfell Tower, a 27-storey apartment building. Police say they were first called to scenes of a fire at 1:16 London time this morning, 1:16 UK time this morning. Let me give you a sense of where it is. It's in West London, so W11. It's in North Kensington, that's what the London Fire Brigade is saying. Grenfell Tower, it's part of the Lancaster West estate. And if you know the area, it's just opposite, let me get it up now, it's opposite, just hang on one second, the Kensington Aldridge Academy. So there's a Kensington Aldridge Academy, Lancaster Green, and it's just opposite that, if you know the area. If you don't, it's close to Notting Hill, close to Holland Park. In terms of tube stations, it's close to Ladbroke Grove and Latimer Road tube stations, and it's very close to the Westfield shopping mall. So these are live pictures now. You can see the emergency services are there. According to the London Fire Brigade, they've got 40 fire trucks and 200 firefighters on the scene. London Ambulance Service have also said that they've sent a lot of their resources there, including their high-risk team. In terms of people, this is an apartment building, and it happened at 1:16 in the morning. The word on the people who are in that building from the police is that 2 people on the scene have been treated for smoke inhalation. And as soon as we get an update on that, we'll bring it to you. But right now, let's talk to Victoria Goldsmith. She's on the line right now, and she just lives a few roads away from Grenfell Tower. Victoria, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. What is happening right now where you are?
The whole building seems to be engulfed now. It's spread all the way to the top. Because I heard it about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I ran out to see if I could help, but there was already people there. There was literally 2 people trapped at the top, and they had mobile phones and they had the lights on trying to flash to signal people, and they couldn't get to them. They were just caught fire, just kept going, and the light just went out.
Okay, Victoria, it sounds very distressing. I just want to update everyone that the police have told us in terms of injuries, in terms of people in that building, There's reports of 2 people being treated on the scene for smoke inhalation. Just to reiterate that that's what we're hearing in terms of injuries from the police right now. So, Victoria, can you tell us a bit more about this area? What is happening now? Where are the people who've been evacuated from that building? What's going on around it right now?
People just stood outside the leisure centre, and police were trying to get people further back because the road's quite narrow. So they were trying to get the services in and out really quick. I sort of tried to talk to a few people and, come away from it because I don't want to be in the way of other people. But it seems to have quieted down a lot now. It's they're trying to get it under control, but it's pretty horrendous.
Indeed, Victoria. So the people that you spoke to on the ground, they had been evacuated from that tower?
Yeah, one lady, she was sort of really distressed, sort of having a panic attack, so I went to see if I could, talk to her and, see what had happened, and she was just saying, that's my home, that's my whole life, and she said, my family's here, and I was just like, well, at least your family's safe, and I just kind of, gave her a hug, and she just started crying. I was just, trying to do everything I could.
Okay, Victoria, an understandably very distressing situation. Thank you very much for joining us, and please keep safe. That's Victoria Goldsmith. She lives just a few roads away from Grenfell Tower. These are the latest pictures, from West London, where that 27-storey tower is on fire. We'll have all the latest from West London when we come back after this break.
Started on the 4th floor and has just spread all the way up and around and over the whole thing.
So, have you spoken to people who are in that building?
I've spoken to some families of families that were in that building, as we've been told to bring water. There was a little shop just at the corner of the street that's just opened up. We've been taking crates and cartons of water and clothes as well. These people have just come out in their pajamas with nothing on their feet. So we've just been bringing coats and shoes and things like that down to the cordon where the police have taken them. Yeah, I've seen people just outside with their kids, just holding dogs and cats, just bemused, just so shaken. I mean, that's your entire life. You're just sitting there watching your entire life go up in flames.
It happened nearly 3 hours ago. That's when the police said they had the initial report when they were called to that scene. What is the scene now? Are the people still at the bottom of that building? Is there a cordon around it? What's happening now?
Yeah, there's a cordon all the way around. There seems to. I hope they've got everybody out. They've taken everybody out. I think they're probably taken them to the leisure centre, which is the closest to it. But the building is pretty much burnt out. There's a tiny bit left that's not on fire, but every single window is gutted. It must be a matter of time before the thing falls down. There's just nothing. There's nothing left of it. There's debris falling off it. And the acrid smell is horrendous, and yeah.
Can you just explain to us what that area is like for people who haven't really been around there? What is that area like, Lancaster West Estate? It's got a very high density population. I think there was about 200 families or something that lived in that block. The streets around are very, very narrow. They're all still quite a Victorian layout. The problem is that we've had a lot of roadworks recently on the main road. There's been gasworks going on, and it's diverted all the main traffic off that main road through these little side roads. So even just on a normal day, these roads are totally blocked, let alone trying to bring 6 or 7 fire engines and ambulances and police cars down it. I think that must have hampered it in some way, just the speed of getting close, because you physically, some of these roads, you physically couldn't get a fire engine down, but with cars parked on both sides. Okay, Tim Downey, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you very much. That was Tim Downey. He lives 600 metres away from this. This is the Grenfell Tower. This is live footage from West London. This building is on fire. Police said they were called at 1:16 UK time to reports of a large fire block. We will have all the latest here on Sky News. The latest is that 2 people are being treated at the scene for smoke inhalation. This is a fire in North Kensington. It's an ongoing situation. Stay with us here on Sky News. Good morning to you. It's 4 o'clock here in London. These are live pictures out of West London, where a 27-storey apartment building has caught fire. The latest news we have from the police that they were called to reports of a large fire at a block of flats in Lancaster West Estate at 1:16 London time. It's now 4 o'clock in the morning. We have a tweet from the Metropolitan Police, and they are saying that residents continue to be evacuated from the tower block fire in North Kensington. A number of people are being treated for a range of injuries. So that's the Metropolitan Police, the London Police, saying that residents are still being evacuated from this tower block. It's in North Kensington, and they are saying that a number of people are being treated for a range of injuries. Earlier, they said that 2 people were being treated for smoke inhalation, and they were being treated on the scene. They've got officers from the London Fire Brigade and the London Ambulance Service on the scene. And as the Met Police said there, an evacuation process is underway. This is a 27-storey fire, the 27-storey building, excuse me, and the London Fire Brigade are saying that it sped from the 2nd floor of the building right to the top of the building. There are cordons in place. It's advised that if you're near there, just don't go anywhere near that area. The estate is called Lancaster West Estate. It's in W11. It's very near Notting Hill and Holland Park, and also the Westfield shopping mall in White City. So that's where it is. We've spoken to a number of witnesses, and we do have a camera on the scene. So let's hear now from 2 people who live close to the fire. They spoke to Sky News earlier and said they could hear people screaming from the burning building.
My son woke me up at about 1:45 this morning to say that the tower block was on fire, and then when I could see it from my garden, it was just the left-hand side piece there, just a couple of floors, and over the hours it's just spread and it's gone round the left of the building as well. Yeah. And well, I just can't believe the way it's gone up so quick. It spreads, but you can hear people. I live down there, about a 5-minute walk away, and we could hear people screaming, "Help me, help me," and flashing their phone lights to let people know that they were there.
You're just helpless. So we've just
been asked to bring up water to the
people that have come out
to the sports centre. There's a sports centre around there, and they let us through the cordons to bring up loads of bottles of water.
So that was 2 ladies who live across from that building. That's the Grenfell Tower. These are live pictures from West London. The Metropolitan Police say that people are being evacuated, and they have reports of a number of injuries. I want to bring you now, the London Fire Brigade have just posted an update to their Facebook page. Let me read that to you. 40 fire engines and over 200 firefighters and officers have been called to a tower block fire on the Lancaster West Estate in North Kensington this morning. The brigade has received multiple calls. The fire is from the 2nd floor to the top floor of the 27-floor building. They've quoted the Assistant Commissioner Dan Daly, and he has said, "Firefighters wearing breathing apparatus are working extremely hard in very difficult conditions to tackle this fire. This is a large and very serious incident, and we have deployed numerous resources and specialist appliances." The brigade was called at 12:54, so that's 54 minutes past midnight, so about 10 to 1 in the morning, and they are still on the scene. Fire crews from North Kensington, Hammersmith and Paddington, and from surrounding fire stations are in attendance. The cause of the fire is not known at this stage. So that's from the London Fire Brigade. They've just posted that on their Facebook page. They're also updating people on @LondonFire on Twitter. Let's listen now to Tim Downey. He lives near the area, about 600 metres from Grenfell Tower. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
I mean, we've been watching this now for a long time, and the fire has spread all over the building now. Like the whole building has been totally engulfed. It's gone. There's like a tiny little bit left that hasn't been on. That's not on fire, but it's just swept through the whole thing, and there's hardly anything left of the building now.
Tim, explain to us when you first saw it. When were you first made aware of what was going on?
It was probably about 2 o'clock, and then woken up by just the incredible noise of sirens and helicopters and shouting. So we just looked out of our window and suddenly to see it just on fire, a whole side, all 27 stories of it just up in flames. And just the smell, the burning that you could smell when the wind changed, and the heat, even from where we are, the heat was extraordinary. Yeah, and that's how we first kind of saw it. And I mean, I've never seen a building this size on fire ever. I've never seen a fire like it in all the time I've lived in London.
You say it's at the end of your road. How far away from you is it?
It's probably 600 meters, 700 meters away.
And in terms of the geography and in terms of the side of the building that was initially on fire, because you're the third person now who's told us that it started on one side and then spread to the rest. What side was that?
It's the side that was the closest to the Kensington Leisure Centre from what I saw. So where I see it, that side of the building wasn't on fire, it was the other side. But now I've just watched it as the fire has just wrapped itself around and just engulfed the whole thing. I mean, from what I heard just from people on the street, is it started on the fourth floor and has just spread all the way up and around and over the whole thing.
So, have you spoken to people who are in that building?
I've spoken to some families of families that were in that building, as we've been told to bring water. There was a little shop just at the corner of the street that's just opened up. We've been taking crates and cartons of water and clothes as well. These people have just come out in their pajamas with nothing on their feet. So we've just been bringing coats and shoes and things like that down to the cordon where the police have taken them. Yeah, I've seen people just outside with their kids, just holding dogs and cats, just bemused, just so shaken. I mean, that's your entire life. You're just sitting there watching your entire life go up in flames.
It happened nearly 3 hours ago. That's when the police said they had the initial report when they were called to that scene. What is the scene now? Are the people still at the bottom of that building? Is there a cordon around it? What's happening now?
Yeah, there's a cordon all the way around. There seems to. I mean, I hope they've got everybody out. I mean, they've taken everybody out. I think they're probably taken them to the leisure centre, which is the closest to it. But the building is pretty much burnt out. There's a tiny bit left that's not on fire, but every single window is gutted. I mean, it must be a matter of time before the thing falls down. There's just nothing. There's nothing left of it. There's debris falling off it. And the acrid smell is horrendous, and yeah.
Can you just explain to us what that area is like for people who haven't really been around there? What is that area like, Lancaster West Estate? It's got a very high density population. I think there was about 200 families or something that lived in that block. The streets around are very, very narrow. They're all still quite a Victorian layout. I mean, the problem is that we've had a lot of roadworks recently on the main road. There's been gasworks going on, and it's diverted all the main traffic off that main road through these little side roads. So even just on a normal day, these roads are totally blocked, let alone trying to bring 6 or 7 fire engines and ambulances and police cars down it. I think that must have hampered it in some way, just the speed of getting close, because you physically, some of these roads, you physically couldn't get a fire engine down, but with cars parked on both sides. Well, that was Tim Downey, who I spoke to earlier, and he lives about 600 metres from this flat, from this apartment block building. If you're just waking up, good morning to you. These are live pictures from West London. The sun is just coming up here in the UK. It is 4:09 in the morning, and this is in West London. A 27-storey apartment block is on fire. This is the latest from the London Fire Brigade. They've posted this to their Facebook. They've said that 40 fire engines and over 200 firefighters and officers have been called to a tower block fire on Lancaster West Estate in North Kensington this morning. The brigade has received multiple calls. The fire is from the second floor to the top floor of that 27-floor building. So you can see there just the level of destruction that's visible. These are live pictures from West London. It's in North Kensington. According to the Assistant Commissioner Dan Daly of the London Fire Brigade, he said that firefighters wearing breathing apparatus are working extremely hard in very difficult conditions to tackle this fire. This is a large and very serious incident, and we've deployed numerous resources and specialist appliances. The brigade was called at 00:54, so about 10 to 1 in the morning, and is still at the scene. It's now 10 past 4 in the morning here in the UK. And fire crews from North Kensington, Hammersmith and Paddington, and from surrounding fire stations are in attendance. The cause of the fire is not known at this stage. The Metropolitan Police, they've also tweeted and they've said that residents continue to be evacuated from the tower block fire in North Kensington. A number of people are being treated for a range of injuries. So that's the only word we have on the people who are in that tower, is that they're still getting evacuated and that a number of people have been treated for a range of injuries. Let's listen now to Victoria Goldsmith. She spoke to me earlier and she lives just a few roads away from Grenfell Tower.
The whole building seems to be engulfed now. It's spread all the way to the top. Because I heard it about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I ran out to see if I could help, but there was already people there. There was literally 2 people trapped at the top, and they had mobile phones and they had the lights on trying to flash to signal people, and they couldn't get to them. They were just caught fire, just kept going, and the light just went out.
Can you tell us a bit more about this area? What is happening now? Where are the people who've been evacuated from that building? What's going on around it right now?
People just stood outside the leisure centre, and police were trying to get people further back because the road's quite narrow. So they were trying to get the services in and out really quick. I sort of tried to talk to a few people and, come away from it because I don't want to be in the way of other people. But it seems to have quieted down a lot now. They're trying to get it under control, but it's pretty horrendous.
Indeed, Victoria. So the people that you spoke to on the ground, they had been evacuated from that tower?
Yeah, one lady, she was sort of really distressed, sort of having a panic attack, so I went to see if I could, talk to her and, see what's happened, and she was just saying, that's my home, that's my whole life, and she said, my family's here, and I was just like, well, at least your family's safe, and I just kind of, gave her a hug, and she just started crying. I was just, trying to do everything I could.
So that was Victoria Goldsmith. She was talking to me a few minutes ago. She is a resident of that area, and she was just explaining to me what was going on now and what happened when she first noticed this fire happening. Let me bring you some more updates in terms of eyewitness accounts. We've had some people say that the cordon, so the police set up a cordon, they said people need to avoid this area, the estate, it's Lancaster West Estate, avoid Lancaster West Estate and the area around it. And we've had people on the scene saying that that cordon has been moved further and further back since the fire started, and that's police officers telling witnesses on the ground. One other witness has said that he's seen one lady sitting on the curb in tears next to him, and that she has told him her 5-year-old son is missing. So that's a witness on the ground telling us that one lady that he saw in tears on the ground has told him that her 5-year-old son is missing. Let me just bring you up to date with what we're dealing with here. The police say that they were called at about 10 to 1 to reports of a large fire in Grenfell Tower in North Kensington. This is Grenfell Tower. It's a 27-storey apartment block. This is about 3 hours on from when it started, and police say that there are specialist teams there. The London Fire Brigade says that there are specialist teams on the scene. They're evacuating the tower. They're still evacuating that tower, getting people out of there, and that there are a number of people who have been injured. The London Fire Brigade, they've also posted something on their Facebook page. They say that 45 engines and over 200 firefighters and officers were called to that tower block fire. It's in Lancaster West Estate. To give you a sense of where it is, it's in West London, W11, so North Kensington. It's on Latimer Road. If we can bring up the map just on half of that screen. Okay, we'll actually bring you that map, but I'll just explain to you where it is. If you know the Westfield shopping centre, it's very close to there. It's in Ladbroke Grove, near White City, near Notting Hill, near Holland Park, just to give you a sense of where it is. It's a 27-storey building. We've spoken to 3 witnesses who say when they first saw the fire, from about 1 o'clock, witnesses say that it started on one side of the building and then it took about an hour for it to engulf the entire building. The London Fire Brigade say that it is now from the 2nd storey up to the top story of that building, and that is a 27-storey building. It's an apartment block. We have no word on the people inside. Initially, the London Fire Brigade was saying that they were aware of 2 people who were treated on the scene for smoke inhalation. We have had an update. From there, and that's the Met Police. So initially, London Fire Brigade saying that they had treated 2 people on the scene for smoke inhalation. Met Police now say that residents are still being evacuated from that block and that a number of people are being treated for a range of injuries. But that's the only word we have on the people who are in that building. As soon as we have an update, we'll bring that to you. Let me just bring you an update from some of the witnesses that we've been hearing from. On Twitter, Celeste Thomas, she lives at the scene and she has said, "Police moving everyone back. I literally live across the road. Hundreds of people outside, residents and families trying to find each other. Police have moved everyone back out of direct sight, but can hear cracking and debris falling." So that is live footage of the Grenfell Tower in West London. You can see that the sun is just coming up. It's getting lighter and lighter. Let's hear now from Saffron Diaz. She was just driving past the scene as that fire broke out.
Past at the time when I noticed it was happening, and I saw one side of the brick of flat completely engulfed in flames, and then I saw emergency services making their way and firefighters trying to fight it, but I wasn't close really, but it's such a big fire you can see it from quite a distance.
So were you on the street, Saffron, or where were you when you saw it happen? And what made you, what drew your attention to it? Was it, you saw it on one side of the building, you said?
Yeah, I was driving, so I wasn't near it. And what caught my attention is that you could see smoke from the sky. And then as I got closer, you could just see the complete flame. So the whole left side was in flames. We had debris falling off the building.
How far away were you from the fire, Saffron? Did you drive past it?
Yeah, driving past, but I wasn't close. Probably, yeah, I was on a motorway, so it wasn't close, but you could see it.
You could see it, okay. And you saw the emergency services, you said?
Yeah, there was quite a lot on the way. We came both ways, and we saw them on the way each time. Probably about 4 or 5 police cars, 2, 3 firefighter cars, just a lot of emergency services.
Okay, and how fast did you think it was spreading?
Very quickly, but because I didn't see it start, I'm not really sure. But for the whole left side to be in flames, I could see that it was a really serious fire and it was spreading.
Well, that was Saffron Dior. She was driving past the scene when this fire broke out, and she was just explaining what she saw there. She drove past it. We do have a camera there. This is live footage from West London, where the sun is coming up and you can see the extent of the damage to this building. This is Grenfell Tower, a 27-storey apartment block in West London, where a fire broke out. The Met Police and London Fire Brigade said that they were first called to reports at about 10 to 1 this morning. They were called to reports of a very serious fire. That's what they're calling it, a very serious fire. And the London Fire Brigade say that 45 engines and 200 firefighters are there. They're continuing to evacuate people. They've had to go in with specialist equipment to go in and help get those people out. Initially, they said that they were called from between, the first reports came in at 10 to 1 and then 1:16 again, and they were called to this block of flats. It's in Lancaster West Estate, which is in West London. It's very close to Notting Hill, Holland Park, White City, very close to the Westfield shopping mall, if you know that. That's where it is, sort of over the roundabout there. Huge plumes of smoke. As Londoners wake up, they will see that for miles around. But as the sun comes up, we can see the level of destruction. And we do have our senior correspondent, Ashish Joshi. He is on the scene. Let's go directly to Ashish. Ashish, what can you tell us? He's on the phone. Ashish, can you hear us? What's happening?
It's the tower block, the 24-story tower block is still alight. There are thick plumes of smoke, as you can see from your pictures. I've just been speaking to some residents on the ground, people who have been evacuated. There are hundreds of people on the streets, densely packed neighborhood, lots of councillors, flats, homes. They've all been asked to leave their homes because there is, I suppose, a fear or a danger that parts of this building could start coming down now. The fire has gone all the way right to the very top. Speaking to residents who were evacuated, there are still, according to the people I spoke to, and I ought to stress that this hasn't been confirmed by the emergency services who are on the ground, but we have seen people who are still being evacuated, people being taken away in chairs away from the site to ambulances, which are on the end of the cordon. But certainly one person I spoke to, an interview I did with him about 30 minutes ago, he seemed to suggest that the fire started at about 1:45, and he lives on the 4th floor of Grenfell Tower. He thinks that the fire started in his neighbor's flat because of a fire or an explosion with some sort of a domestic appliance. He said it was a fridge. His neighbor woke him up and said there's been a fire, and then very quickly they evacuated themselves, and the emergency services turned up some 30 or 40 minutes later. So some residents had been alerted. They'd left the building, but certainly he said there were about 206 or 216 homes or properties inside the tower block. So that will give you an indication of just how many people would have been inside when the fire started. One thing he did say, he said a lot of people were up because of Ramadan. They had broken their fast. Some people had gone back to sleep and were waking up again to eat before their fast started the next day. So that in itself could have helped. If there were people who were awake, if their families were awake because of Ramadan, that would have been probably a lifesaver for many of the families who are inside. But certainly he seemed to suggest that there were people inside who were trying to call friends who had been evacuated. So, but the situation here is extremely grim. Just looking at the fire, it seems to have been diminished on many of the floors, but it is still raging up towards the top floor, as you can probably see in your picture now.
We can indeed, Ashish. I just want to update everyone that Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London, has tweeted, and he has said that a major incident has been declared at Grenfell Tower in Kensington. 40 fire engines and 200 firefighters at the scene. Follow at London Fire, which is the London Fire Brigade, for updates. So that's Sadiq Khan saying that a major incident has been declared at Grenfell Tower in Kensington. 40 fire engines and 200 firefighters are at the scene. And Ashish, have you seen these emergency services? I mean, we've heard of a cordon that was put up around this building, and then witnesses say that that cordon has moved further and further away from that building. Can you see the amount of emergency crews there? What are they doing?
Yeah, there are fire engines on every street. There are fire engines, there are police officers, there are emergency personnel from the utility services, there are people here from the electricity board, the gas board. So this is a coordinated response from all of the emergency services, but certainly drawing on the expertise of the utility companies as well. You speak about the cordon. I mean, the cordon extends so far back now. I mean, it goes for several blocks now, and you can hear. I can actually hear large, what sound like at least parts of the building inside, which might be coming away or beginning to collapse inside. And I think that's what the fear is here from the police. There are hundreds of police officers here manning the cordons, just urging residents to try and stay as far back as possible. But obviously, a lot of the people who've been evacuated are standing and watching everything they own go up in flames. There's nothing they can do. There's a sense of helplessness. And of all the people here, there isn't any panic. People are just looking at what is happening with a degree of disbelief, because the tower block is aflame. The smoke is rising, and there are people who have escaped with their lives and are looking back on the tower, knowing that everything they own has been destroyed. It's a terrible, terrible situation here.
Indeed, Ashish. Ashish, just stay with us for a moment. We're going to hear now from a witness, Mahad Iqbal, who spoke to our cameraman earlier.
It's just a lot of smoke, it's just dark, and I slammed the door shut. Didn't even lock it or anything, I just slammed it shut, so there's no more smoke coming in, because I knew I don't want the kids to suffocate and stuff. It's too much. So this is the second incident that I personally have been in where there was fire, so I thought, well, this is just something I knew how to handle. So I got towels, I waited out before I woke the kids up with wet towels in my hand, screaming down the hallway to the wife. She's in the living room. So I screamed out. I said, "Hey, there's fire!" Like, literally, I'm not kidding. There's fire. Like, get out.
What time were you awoken?
We weren't awoken. We were awake. We were, eating, drinking. It's Ramadan, so it's just before. It's almost time to stop eating. About a couple hour or so. We were preparing to go to sleep. So it's by chance that we had a knock, and the guy who knocked, which so happens to be the guy whose house was the cause of the whole thing, is his fridge. He explained to us as he came down afterwards and was outside the building, he explained to us that it was due to his fridge, which exploded. That's what he kept saying. On the fourth floor in house number 16.
And do you think everyone inside the block has been evacuated?
No.
How do you know?
How do we know? Because the fire spread extremely quick, and people on the left-hand side of the building were screaming out, "Help us!" sticking their heads out the window. People were waving phones for invisibility, because there's so much smoke coming around right now. The left-hand side caught smoke really fast. I think it's due to it's hard to speculate now, but I would say the cladding and all this fixes is what caused the fire to just erupt in under an hour.
Do you know if there are people still inside?
We do know. There's people. We've received phone calls. We've got family and friends still in there. There is someone trapped in 81, 5-year-old girl. We wish her all the best, man. Honestly, man. We wish her all the best. There's still some families coming out. There is more fire brigade and more firefighters going in there with the oxygen tanks and first aid kits and all sorts of stuff. So there's all sorts of different fire brigade units and departments that are turning up now. Amount of ambulances, every road around us, the buildings around us are all being evacuated.
Okay, that was Mahad Iqbal. He was talking to Ashish Joshi, who's our senior correspondent. He's on the phone with me at the moment. I'll talk to you in a moment, Ashish, but I just want to update you. We've been hearing from witnesses, and in the last 2 minutes, one witness has been saying that police are telling the gathered crowd, tell your loved ones to get a wet cloth over their face and get out. Do not wait. And they've also been telling the crowd, if you get a call from a relative inside, tell them to self-evacuate. Do not wait for the brigade. What you're looking at now is live pictures from West London. Our senior correspondent Ashish Joshi is there. And Ashish, you've been speaking to people who were in that building when the fire started.
Yeah, you just heard from a resident, Mahad Iqbal, who was right next to the fire, he thinks, when it began at about 1:45 this morning. I met Mahad just on the periphery of the cordon, looking back on the tower, and he was telling me about the evacuation. He said he'd been involved in a fire in the block before, so he knew exactly what was happening. Obviously, he didn't know about the severity or what was later to become such a serious fire, but he said he told his wife and children to get out as quickly as they could. And so he's standing there now on the edge of the cordon in the T-shirt and the tracksuit he was wearing, everything he owns is inside his apartment, which is now completely gutted. But the warning from the emergency services, there are more crews turning up, there are more firefighters on the ground who are attending, and more police officers, of course, trying to keep the residents who live around the tower block, to try and keep them away for their own safety. But it's very difficult. You walk outside and you can see this tower block for miles around. When I took a taxi into West London this morning, you could smell the pungent smoke several blocks away, and you could see the fire, which was alight in the middle of the night. And the distress and look on all the people who were just standing and watching what is unfolding before their very eyes. But as you can see from your pictures, there are parts of the building which are now coming away. This is an old tower block. I guess 60s or 70s. There are people talking about refurbishment programs. There are residents who have been telling me it's because of the gasworks or because of the cladding that the council undertook. A renovation program where they put some cladding. And there's also lots of talk about fire alarms not going off and not alerting or waking residents. But this will come at a much later stage when the fire has been brought under control and the people who are inside have been brought to safety, and certainly the people who have been evacuated earlier are treated. I did see people being wheeled away by paramedics and ambulance crews, and when I spoke to a police officer on the edge of the cordon, she told me that the cordons had been put up so people could be treated inside those cordons, and that's why the cordons were being thrown back, because more people are being brought out and being treated.
Now, Ashish, you've had decades of reporting experience. I wouldn't want to put you on the spot here, but in this type of situation, would the fire brigades be tackling the fire from the outside or from the inside? Oh,
from the outside. I mean, looking at this now, there was a ladder up earlier, but the intensity of the heat, of when you consider this is a tower block, which is 24 stories high. I mean, to get anywhere near that building, it just wouldn't be possible, just because of the heat that has been generated because of the fire. So it must be one of the most difficult fires for any firefighter to have to tackle. But certainly the access is there, but it would be almost impossible to try and get anywhere inside the building because of the intensity of the blaze right now. They've got to hope that people have managed to evacuate themselves, and they will be met by emergency services somewhere if there are firefighters inside. I can't tell you from where I'm standing. I can see certainly the top two-thirds of the building, but the base, the ground, I can't tell you what's going on there. So there will be emergency services in attendance as close as they can possibly get, trying to make sure that everyone who's inside the building has been evacuated. That's their prior concern now.
Indeed. Ashish, just stay with me a moment. I just want to update people who are just joining us. And just to follow on from that point, we've had witnesses who just 5 minutes ago have been tweeting and saying that police on the scene are telling the crowd, the people who are gathered there, that tell your loved ones, if they're in that building, to get a wet cloth over their face and get out. Don't wait. And if you get a call from a relative who's inside that building, tell them to self-evacuate and not to wait for the brigade. The London Fire Brigade, the latest update from them, it's on their Facebook page, and they say that 45 engines and over 200 firefighters and officers have been called to a tower block fire. It's on the Lancaster West Estate in North Kensington. It happened this morning. The brigade received multiple calls. The fire is from the second floor to the top floor, and you can see these are live pictures of that tower. So the second floor up to the top floor. The Assistant Commissioner of the London Fire Brigade, Dan Daly, has said firefighters wearing breathing apparatus are working extremely hard in very difficult conditions to tackle this fire. This is a large and very serious incident, and we have deployed numerous resources and specialist appliances. The brigade was called at about 10 to 1. They're still at the scene. There are fire crews from North Kensington, Hammersmith and Paddington, and from surrounding fire stations. They're there. They say the cause of the fire is not known at this stage. But Ashish, you spoke to a resident who was in that building at the very beginning, or what he thought was at the very beginning of this fire.
Yeah, Mahat Igal, he's a resident in the Grenfell Tower estate. He lives on the 4th floor. He thinks that a neighbor told him the fire started in the neighbor's flat because of an exploding electrical appliance. We simply don't know whether that's true, but it's the truth as far as Mr. Igal is concerned. So he would have been very close to the start of the fire, and that's why he was able to evacuate his family very quickly. But then as soon as he did, he didn't hang around, wait to collect any possessions. He told his wife and his children to leave as quickly as they could. And he said by the time they'd evacuated, the fire had spread very, very quickly, and that they were still receiving calls from people who were trapped inside the building waiting to be evacuated. But he expressed some concerns about just how fireproof or how many of the health and safety regulations as far as multi-story occupancy buildings like this have, how many of those would be valid. But that's a question which will have to be addressed later. As I'm speaking now, there are more firefighters and police officers who are just turning up. I expect most of the fire stations in and around West London are here on site and are carrying their breathing apparatus and specialist equipment. I see lots of masks, and they are preparing, I suppose, to try and get as close or inside the lower part of the building. But lots of residents have said that they're worried about this building coming down. It depends on really how badly damaged the structure has been by the fire, or what we're seeing inside now is the last minutes of the fire burning itself out. But certainly it doesn't look like it's under control. And this is 24 stories with fully furnished apartments and houses and homes. So there will be a lot of material in there that is still alight.
Okay, well, we're looking at live pictures now of a 27-storey apartment block that is on fire in West London. It's in Ladbroke Grove. It's on Latimer Road, if you know that area, near the Westfield shopping mall. Ashish Joshi, our senior correspondent, is there. It's a densely packed neighbourhood. There would have been hundreds of people on the street now, Ashish. But tell us about the time. It comes during Ramadan. So do you think that people would have been awake at that time? It was at quarter to one in the morning.
That's certainly what I was told by a few of the residents who had been evacuated. And by the time I turned up I was here at about 3 o'clock. There were hundreds and hundreds of people on the street who looked like they'd been awake for a while. So this is the fasting month of Ramadan. This is a community which has a large concentration of Muslim families, and they would have broken their fast and then they would have been up most of the night preparing to go back to sleep or wake up again so they could eat before their fast began again at sunrise. Now, that was certainly true in the case of the one witness I spoke to, and he said that lots of people were up because it's a Ramadan and they were preparing for their fast for later today. So if that is true, that would have saved many, many lives. This is a fire that broke in the middle of the night at about 12:30, quarter to one. Families who would have been in their beds unaware of exactly what was happening unless they were woken by neighbours or by the emergency services.
Okay, Ashish, just stay with us and let's listen now to Ashish's interview with the Mahed Igal. He told us that he believes that there are people still trapped in that tower.
Just before 1 a.m, we got a huge knock on the door. My wife and I was awake. Our 2 kids were asleep. It was a strange knock, so I kind of just went for it, just find out what it was about. There was no one at the end of the door. When I opened it, there was no one else. There was no one there. It's just a lot of smoke. It's just dark. And I slammed the door shut. Didn't even lock it or anything. I just slammed it shut, so there's no more smoke coming in because I knew I don't want the kids to suffocate and stuff. It's just too much. So this is the second incident that I personally have been in where there was fire. So I thought, well, this is just something I knew how to handle. So I got towels. I waited out before I woke the kids up with wet towels in my hand, screaming down the hallway to the wife. She's in the living room. So I screamed out. I said, hey, there's fire. Like, Literally, I'm not kidding. There's fire. Like people on the left-hand side of the building were screaming out, "Help us!" Sticking their heads out the window. People were waving phones for invisibility because there's so much smoke coming around right now. The left-hand side caught smoke really fast. I think it's due to the. It's hard to speculate now, but I would say it's the cladding and all this fixes is what caused the fire to just erupt in under an hour.
Do you know if there are people still inside?
We do know there's people.
Know?
We've received phone calls. We've got family and friends still in there. There is someone trapped in 81, 5-year-old girl. We wish her all the best, man. Honestly, man. We wish her all the best. There's still some families coming out. There is more fire brigade and more firefighters going in there with the oxygen tanks and first aid kits and all sorts of stuff.
Well, that was Maher Degal, who was a resident of that building, and he was talking to our senior correspondent Ashish Joshi. Ashish joins me now on the phone from West London. And Ashish, it's now 4:40 in the morning UK time. What is happening there now as people start waking up in that neighbourhood? I mean, they must have been awake for quite some time now if they were woken up by the noise of 45 fire engines and 200 firefighters arriving on the scene.
Yeah, I expect that there aren't very many people who've managed to sleep through this, but it is light now. There are more residents who are turning out. And just, got to say, just standing around in silence and just looking aghast at this tower block, which is still burning. That there are firefighters who are turning up and sprinting in all directions. There will be a control and command center which has been set up, deploying the emergency services and the firefighters to where they're needed. But I'm just walking up towards the edge of the cordon now where there are residents who are just looking on at what's happening, and police officers on the scene, and then there are more firefighters who are actually heading in towards the building. But certainly the people I'm standing among here on the ground would have been the early people who've been evacuated. Yeah. I'm trying to talk to police officers, asking why that they can't try and get closer to the building. Obviously, this is very, very distressing for the people who are nearby, who have got friends who live in this tower block. This is an extremely... I know we say this all the time. Whenever there is an emergency like this, we talk about communities, but just to stress, I mean, in this area of West London, it's densely populated, tightly packed. It's full of council estates and housing blocks, and people are very, very tight-knit. They all know each other. There are police officers who are now turning up with battering rams, leading firefighters up in towards the tower block now. So obviously they want to try and break down the doors and try and gain access to some of the properties inside. So the emergency services working very closely together. There are people here with their hands over their faces, scarcely able to believe what is happening now.
Okay, Ashish, well, just stay with me while I bring everyone up to date with what's going on. There's been a fire in West London. A 27-storey apartment block has caught fire. It happened at about 1:45 in the morning. Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, he's tweeted, and he has said, a major incident has been declared at Grenfell Tower in Kensington. 40 fire engines and 200 firefighters at the scene. Follow at London Fire for updates. And at London Fire is the London Fire Brigade. And I'll bring you the latest from there. In terms of casualties, in terms of the people that we have, in terms of the people who are in that building, we've had a witness who has said that police, this was about 16 minutes ago, police have been telling the crowd that have gathered, there is a cordon around this building, and from what we understand, it's moving further and further away from that building. And police have been telling the crowd, tell your loved ones to get a wet cloth over their face and get out. Do not wait. They've also been telling the crowd, if you get a call from a relative inside, tell them to self-evacuate. Don't wait for the brigade. In terms of the London Fire Brigade, they've got 45 engines there and over 200 firefighters. And Ashish Joshi, who's on the scene, has told us that more people, more firefighters are on their way. He sees more coming. The Met Police have also tweeted. They've said that residents continue to be evacuated from the tower block fire in North Kensington. A number of people are being treated for a range of injuries. So that is all we have on the people who are in that tower, that they're still being evacuated. There are a number of people being treated for a range of injuries. As soon as we have any more on that, we will bring it to you. But let me just bring you up to date with what has happened. This is in West London. There's been a fire in a 27-storey apartment building. It's gone from the second floor up to the top floor. People are still being evacuated. That's what the Met Police are saying. It's 4:44 in the morning here in the UK. People are waking up. Let me give you a sense of the geography. This is in Ladbroke Grove in West London. This building, Grenfell Tower, is on Latimer Road. It's part of the Lancaster West Estate in W11, and an evacuation process is underway. Let me bring in my colleague, Claudia Liza. She joins me here in the studio. And Claudia Liza, at 4:44, people are waking up to this news. What is the latest?
Yeah, thanks so much, Kimberly. As you've been saying, 200 firefighters are now attending the scene in North Kensington after a fire broke out on an estate there on the Grenfell Tower, 27-storey tower. It started from the second floor and it's gone all the way up to the 27th floor. As you can see, that's completely engulfed in this blaze, and around 200 firefighters are there, around 40 to 45 fire engines attending the scene as this fire broke out. Now, it did break out just around 1 o'clock this morning, where the London Fire Brigade received a number of calls. So they said just being told about this fire. They attended that scene. However, eyewitnesses have reported that once this fire did start, it moved ever so quickly and began to take over the rest of the building. Now, some people were able to become evacuated. We've spoken to a few of them here on Sky News. Our reporter, Ashish Joshi, spoke to one eyewitness who described what it was like being inside. Now, he said he heard an appliance, from what he was saying, an appliance go off and explode. He was suggesting that potentially this could have started the fire. We still don't know. An investigation will obviously need to take place to find out exactly how this fire did start. But he reported that he heard an explosion, and the fact is, he actually said also that there had been a fire at this estate before, so he more or less knew exactly what to do. Now, he was already awake in the middle of the night. He was practicing Eid. It's Ramadan, so he'd already been awake in the middle of the night when this happened. So potentially, could this have saved his life? Is this the reason why he was able to evacuate himself and the rest of his family who were also in the building with him? However, he was able to escape, but he did tell our reporter, Ashish Joshi, that there could be potentially more people in there. He said that quite adamantly, largely because he was speaking to people in the building via mobile phones, who told him that they were still in there and they were trying to get out. Now, the advice firefighters have been giving people, given the nature of this fire, actually rising to the 27th floor of this building, firefighters literally might not be able to get to the top of that building. We have seen some crews, some equipment reach some parts of that building, but not to the very top. So they are advising people not to wait, to actually get out and get a wet flannel, wrap it around their face, and to get out. That is the latest advice from London Fire Brigade. But as you can see there, this fire has engulfed this building in West London. It's a tower block in West London, in North Kensington to be precise. Not too far off from the Westfield shopping centre, bang in the middle of Ladbroke Grove, which is right next to Holland Park and Notting Hill Gate. But this fire is now has engulfed this building in West London. And as I've said, 200 firefighters are attending the scene, around 40 to 45 fire engines are also there. Now, we just get the latest from police who are saying a number of people are being treated for a range of injuries, including smoke inhalation. And we've also had details coming in from witnesses. One witness who spoke to Sky News, Mahad Egal, just described how he was able to actually escape that fire. He managed to get out after he said he heard an explosion in a property next door. An appliance he believes could have potentially have started the fire. Of course, that hasn't been verified. We are going to have to wait until an investigation actually establishes what exactly happened. But Metropolitan Police say they are continuing to evacuate people from this massive tower block fire. This is the latest we are getting from the Metropolitan Police. They are saying the reports of people being trapped inside this burning building. As I said, we spoke to one eyewitness who said he was very adamant that there were people still inside this tower block. He said he had spoken to people, and the advice that firefighters are telling people is to get out. Now, let's get the latest from London Fire Brigade. They've been posting an update of this fire and how they are tackling it on social media. On Facebook, they've confirmed that 40 fire engines and over 200 firefighters and officers have been called to a tower block on the Lancaster West estate in North Kensington this morning. And this fire, apparently they've got reports of this fire at around 1 o'clock this morning. The brigade has received multiple calls. The fire is from the second floor to the top floor of the 27th floor building. Now, this from the Assistant Commissioner, Dan Daly. Now, he said firefighters wearing breathing apparatus are working incredibly hard in very difficult conditions to tackle this fire. This is a large and very serious incident, and we have deployed numerous resources and specialist appliances. Now, they've confirmed that the brigade were called at around 5 to 1 this morning and is still at the scene. Fire crews from North Kensington, Hammersmith and Paddington and from surrounding fire stations are in attendance. And he's gone on to say that the cause of the fire is not yet known at this stage. But police have also confirmed that a number of people are being treated for a variety of injuries, which include smoke inhalation. And they've also tweeted saying residents continue to be evacuated from the tower block in North Kensington. A number of people are being treated, as I said, for a number of injuries. Now, we've also had a tweet from London Mayor Sadiq Khan. Now, he's confirmed that a major incident has been declared at Grenfell Tower in Kensington. 40 fire engines and 200 firefighters are at the scene. So let's bring you up to date. Then we are dealing with a massive fire at a tower block in West London, the Grenfell Tower block. And as you can see there, this fire has engulfed a large proportion of this building. Firefighters, London Fire Brigade saying the fire starts from the second floor all the way to the top of this 27-storey building. Now, we were getting reports here at Sky News in the middle of the night. Kimberly Leonard was reporting that this fire started out with just a few floors, and it's actually just continued to spread to the rest of the floors on this 27 block building. Now, we've had numerous footage that's coming into us from social media showing the building being engulfed with the fire. And what was really interesting about that, you also saw buildings with the lights are turned on. This is happening in the middle of the night, and you could just assume that potentially some people were turning the lights on to reports of this fire or couldn't get a sense of there's an incident at that building. So you did see activity within the building. Whether there are people still trapped there, we've got reports from one eyewitness saying that he believed, he was very adamant that there were people still engulfed in this fire in the building, because he said he was speaking to family and friends, and he was just saying that, you know, he prayed. He'd just been practicing Ramadan. It's Eid right now.
It's not that. Let me correct you.
Oh, please, thank you, Kimberly.
So people would have been breaking their fast. And let me pick up on that incident, on that the reports of people who were in the building, who are still in the building, and we've had witnesses on the scene saying that police have been talking to the crowd who have gathered there. There is a cordon. It's being moved further and further away from that building. But the police have been telling the crowd that if you get a call from a relative who's inside that building, tell them to self-evacuate. don't wait for the brigade. They've also said, tell your loved ones, if they're calling you from inside that building, to get a wet cloth over your face and get out, don't wait. And this would back up what Mahdi Gal, one of the residences of Grenfell, of Grenfell Tower, was telling our senior correspondent Ashish Joshi, who's on the scene, that people were calling him from inside that tower. Let's go to West London now, where Ashish Joshi is. And Ashish, people are beginning to wake up. It's nearly 5 o'clock in the morning now. What's happening there?
There are people outside the cordon who are looking on. The fire service is continuing to do the best it can to try and bring this horrendous blaze under control. But it does look like, I mean, it's certainly not the raging inferno it was, say, an hour and a half ago when I first got here. But it's still smouldering. You can see from the pictures that it's still burning. So the most important thing really is for the emergency services and the firefighters to make sure that the building has been evacuated, that they've taken away as many of the residents that they could reach and take them away from this tower. But certainly I'm standing underneath the block now, and it's still burning. The fire's gone straight to the top of the 24 stories, and there are people who are just leaving their homes now just to look at what has unfolded in front of them. You know, they would have known people inside. These would have been families who would have been at the same schools and used the same community resources that are here. There are lots and lots of council flats and blocks and housing estates around the tower. So everyone here would have known somebody who's been affected by that fire inside. And when I was speaking to residents who've been evacuated, they have only the clothes that they're wearing. So everything they own would have been inside that tower block when it went up in flames in the early hours of this morning or in the middle of the night. So even now, people are just standing around, just looking, and the sense of helplessness, hands over mouths, looking on in shock and horror, and at the wreck. That is this big block of singed building, which is just to look at it is absolutely horrifying. And there is debris falling away from parts of the building now, but it does look like the structure itself has remained intact, and that for the fire services is a remarkable achievement, because that would have been the main worry. If a block this size had come down around, or parts of this building had come down around, there would have been much more devastation, because there are houses and buildings right around this tower block.
Okay, Ashish, will stay with us. We're going to hear now from two people who live close to the fire. They spoke to Sky News earlier and said that they could hear people screaming from the building.
You heard from everyone inside. You know, you were talking.
My son woke me up at about 1:45 this morning to say that the tower block was on fire, and then when I could see it from my garden, it was just the left-hand side piece there, just a couple of floors, and over the hours it's just spread, and it's gone round the left of the building as well.
Yeah.
And well, I just can't believe the way it's gone up so quick.
It spreads, but you can hear people.
I lived down there, about a 5-minute walk away, and we could hear people screaming, "Help me, help me," and flashing their phone lights to let people know that they were there.
But there's nothing. You're just helpless. So we've just
been asked to bring up water to the
people that have come out
to the sports centre.
There's
a sports centre around there, and they let us through the cordons to bring up loads of bottles of water.
That was two ladies you were hearing from there. They were witnesses, and they live very close to this Grenfell Tower. And that is what is left of Grenfell Tower this morning. We are live in West London, where there's been a fire in an apartment block, a 27-storey apartment block. Police say it went from the second floor up to the very top. There are reports that there are still people trapped in that tower. Police on the scene have been telling the crowd that if you get telephone calls from people within that building, just tell them to get out. They have to self-evacuate and don't wait for the London Fire Brigade. Tell your loved ones to get a wet cloth over their face and get out. Don't wait. Let me just update you. The London Fire Brigade is saying that 45 engines and over 200 firefighters and officers were called to that tower block. It's in Lancaster West Estate, which is in North Kensington. The fire broke out at about 1:45, 10 to 1 in the morning. The brigade was called at 10 to 1 in the morning. They're still on that scene. We've had fire crews from North Kensington, Hammersmith and Paddington, and from surrounding fire stations in attendance. The cause of the fire is not known at this stage. The Met Police, they've tweeted, and they have said that residents continue to be evacuated from the tower block. A number of people are being treated for a range of injuries. So that is what we're hearing. Initially, we heard that 2 people were being treated on the scene for smoke inhalation, and the Met Police in the last hour have come out and said that a number of people are being treated for a range of injuries. So a fire in West London in a 27-storey apartment block. It's in White City on Latimer Road near White City in Ladbroke Grove. We have people on the scene. We have the latest for you here on Sky News. From what we understand, an evacuation process is still underway. Police have been telling the crowd if you hear from people, loved ones in that building, tell them to get a wet cloth over their face and get out. It is 5 o'clock here in the UK. This is live from West London. We've got 2 angles for you there, so to give you a sense of just the destruction of this fire. We've had the London Fire Brigade say that they have specialist equipment, firefighters wearing breathing apparatus. They're working extremely hard in very difficult conditions to tackle this fire. It's very large. It's a very serious incident, and we've deployed numerous resources and specialist appliances. The brigade was called at 10 to 1. They're still at the scene. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, he has tweeted and he has said this is a major incident. He's declared it a major incident at Grenfell Tower in Kensington, and he has said that there are 40 fire engines and 200 firefighters at the scene. And he's advised, this is Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, advising you to follow at London Fire on Twitter for updates. Claudia Liza joins me now, my colleague. Claudia, what is the latest?
Yeah, so let's talk about exactly what we do know so far this morning. Well, London Fire Brigade were first called just around 1 o'clock this morning. It was around 5:21 to the Grenfell Tower in Latimer Road. This is in Ladbroke Grove. Now, the building in North Kensington is at least 24 stories high. We understand it's be 27 stories high. The fire has started, is working its way out from the 2nd floor all the way up to the top of that tower block. 40 fire engines containing more than 200 firefighters are now attending the scene, fighting this major fire. Police have said a number of people are being treated for a range of injuries, including 2 people for smoke inhalation. No details of casualties.
We're going to go straight to Ashish Joshi. He's at the scene. Ashish, what update do you have for us?
With a group of residents just underneath the tower block, I can see a resident who's inside, and he's coming to the window. Speaking to the residents have been watching, hoping that the emergency services can get to him. One of the residents I was standing next to just now, who's been watching this, said he seems very calm for now. He was drinking water a little earlier. He keeps pacing up and down inside. And then he does come to the window, and we can see him quite clearly from where I am at the moment, looking out. And it's very difficult to explain, but if you think about the tower block, and I'm looking at one side of it, it's almost as if the building has been affected by the fire in three quarters of the building, but a quarter of the building near the left-hand side bottom, where his flat is, doesn't seem to be affected. So he is surrounded by fire to the top and to his left-hand side, but nothing immediately below him. And it's difficult to tell. I must be a couple of 100 meters away from him, but he does seem quite calm. He's pacing up and down inside, and he's walking towards the window, drinking a glass of water. And the hope is now that the emergency services would know he's there, have identified exactly where he is, and can get to him quickly.
Okay, Ashish, thank you very much. Well, I just want to bring you an update from the London Ambulance Service, and the Assistant Director of Operations there, Stuart Crichton, has said, we were called at 1:29 a.m. to reports of a fire at Lancaster West Estate. We've sent a number of resources to the scene, including our hazardous area response team and over 20 ambulance crews. We're working closely with the London Fire Brigade and the Met Police, with our priority being to get people to safety and ensure they receive the medical help as quickly as possible. Our initial priority is to assess the level and nature of injuries and ensure those in the most need are treated first and taken to hospital. More information will follow when we have it. So we were just hearing there from Ashish Joshi, who's on the scene in North Kensington in West London, saying that they are in contact. There are people, residents from that tower, who are in contact with someone who is in the tower currently. We've heard from the Met Police that there is an ongoing evacuation process, but they have told people that if you hear from people trapped in the tower, get them to self-evacuate if they can, put a wet cloth over their mouths and get out. Do not wait for the fire brigade. Let's listen now from Mahad Igal. He spoke to Ashish Joshi a bit earlier, and he was explaining that he feared that there were people trapped in the tower.
Just before 1 a.m, we got a huge knock on the door. My wife and I was awake, our two kids were asleep. It was a strange knock, so I kind of just went for it, just find out what it was about. There was no one at the end of the door. When I opened it, there was no one else. There was no one there. It's just a lot of smoke. It's just dark. I slammed the door shut. Didn't even lock it or anything. I just slammed it shut, so there's no more smoke coming in because I knew I don't want the kids to suffocate and stuff. It's too much. So this is the second incident that I personally have been in where there was fire. So I thought, well, this is just something I knew how to handle. So I got towels. I waited out before I woke the kids up with wet towels in my hand, screaming down the hallway to the wife. She's in the living room. So I just screamed out. I said, "Hey, there's fire!" Like literally, I'm not kidding. There's fire. Like get out. People on the left-hand side of the building were screaming out, "Help us!" Sticking their heads out the window. People were waving phones for invisibility because there's so much smoke coming around right now. The left-hand side caught smoke really fast. I think it's due to it's hard to speculate now, but I would say the cladding and all this fixes is what caused the fire to just erupt
and
under
do you
an
know
hour.
If there are people still inside?
We do know there's
How do you
people.
know?
We've received phone calls. We've got family and friends still in there. There is someone trapped in 81, a 5-year-old girl. We wish her all the best, man. Honestly, man. We wish her all the best. There's still some families coming out. There is more fire brigade and more firefighters going in there with the oxygen tanks and first aid kits and all sorts of stuff.
My son woke me up at about 1:45 this morning to say that the tower block was on fire, and then when I could see it from my garden, it was just the left-hand side piece there, just a couple of floors, and over the hours it's just spread and it's gone round the left of the building as well. Yeah. And well, I just can't believe the way it's gone up so quick.
It spreads, but you can hear people.
I live down there, about a 5-minute walk away, and we could hear people screaming, "Help me, help me," and flashing their phone lights to let people know that they were there.
There's nothing. You just help this. So we've just
been asked to bring up water to the
people that have come out
to the sports centre. There's a sports centre around there, and they let us through the cordons to bring up loads of bottles of water.
I mean, we've been watching this now for a long time, and the fire has spread all over the building now. Like the whole building has been totally engulfed. It's gone. There's like a tiny little bit left that hasn't been on. That's not on fire, but it's just swept through the whole thing, and there's hardly anything left of the building now.
Tim, explain to us when you first saw it. When were you first made aware of what was going on?
It was probably about 2 o'clock, and then woken up by just the incredible noise of sirens and helicopters and shouting. So we just looked out of our window and suddenly to see it just on fire, a whole side, all 27 stories of it just up in flames, and just the smell, the burning that you could smell when the wind changed, and the heat, even from where we are, the heat was extraordinary. Yeah, and that's how we first kind of saw it. And I mean, I've never seen a building this size on fire ever. I've never seen a fire like it in all the time I've lived in London.
You say it's at the end of your road. How far away from you is it?
It's probably 600 metres, 700 metres away.
And in terms of the geography and in terms of the side of the building that was initially on fire, because you're the third person now who's told us that it started on one side and then spread to the rest. What side was that?
It's the side that was the closest to the Kensington Leisure Centre from what I saw. So where I see it, that side of the building wasn't on fire, it was the other side. But now I've just watched it as the fire has just wrapped itself around and just engulfed the whole thing. I mean, from what I heard just from people on the street, is it started on the fourth floor and has just spread all the way up and around and over the whole thing.
So, have you spoken to people who are in that building?
I've spoken to some families families that were in that building, as we've been told to bring water. There was a little shop just at the corner of the street that's just opened up. We've been taking crates and cartons of water and clothes as well. These people have just come out in their pajamas with nothing on their feet. So we've just been bringing coats and shoes and things like that down to the cordon where the police have taken them. Yeah, I've seen people just outside with their kids, just holding dogs and cats, just bemused, just so shaken. I mean, that's your entire life. You're just sitting there watching your entire life go up in flames.
It happened nearly 3 hours ago. That's when the police said they had the initial report when they were called to that scene. What is the scene now? Are the people still at the bottom of that building? Is there a cordon around it? What's happening now?
Yeah, there's a cordon all the way around. There seems to. I mean, I hope they've got everybody out. I mean, they've taken everybody out. I think they're probably taken them to the leisure centre, which is the closest to it. But the building is pretty much burnt out. There's a tiny bit left that's not on fire, but every single window is gutted. I mean, it must be a matter of time before the thing falls down. There's just nothing. There's nothing left of it. There's debris falling off it. And the acrid smell is horrendous, and yeah.
Can you just explain to us what that area is like for people who haven't really been around there? What is that area like, Lancaster West Estate?
It's got a very high density population. I think there was about 200 families or something that lived in that block. The streets around are very, very narrow. They're all still quite a Victorian layout. I mean, the problem is that we've had a lot of roadworks recently on the main road. There's been gasworks going on, and it's diverted all the main traffic off that main road through these little side roads. So even just on a normal day, these roads are totally blocked, let alone trying to bring 6 or 7 fire engines and ambulances and police cars down it. I think that must have hampered it in some way, just the speed of getting close, because you physically, some of these roads, you physically couldn't get a fire engine down, but with cars parked on both sides.
So you've been listening there to witnesses that I spoke to earlier regarding this fire in Grenfell Tower in West London. Let's talk now to Sophia, who is a witness. Sophia, can you hear me? Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Where were you when the fire broke out?
I was inside my flat. Oh gosh, sorry. Some people, I think, have found someone that survived. Sorry, next to me. Yeah, I was in the flat just parallel, so it's like immediately in front. At about 1 o'clock, I would see. Okay, someone has apparently come out of the window. About 1 o'clock, I saw. I heard loads of sounds, popping sounds. It sounded like someone was shooting. And then I heard loads of sirens. I assumed they were police sirens, but then there were just more and more of them, and the banging sounds got louder and they didn't go away. And then basically I ascertained that this was something serious, so I tried to look out the window to see what was happening. Kept looking down. I didn't realise to look up. When I looked up, I saw about half the building on fire from top to bottom. I've just been told it's a 5-year-old girl that has been taken out of the building. Basically, after that, I literally, by about 1:30, I was right in front, just seeing if there was any way I could help, if, what was happening. And the whole building set ablaze very quickly after that. I would say definitely by 2 o'clock it was almost as if the whole building was on fire and burning through. I can tell you now that a lot of it has burnt out completely, but there are some windows, some flats that are still blazing. There's actually a man that we can see from a window. One of the local residents has binoculars, and we can see a man from a window trying to get attention of the fire brigade, and one of the local residents went to make sure that they knew that person was there. And they are aware he's there, and they're trying to attempt to use a crane to reach him. So there are still some people alive inside. Earlier on today, I was inside. I was going around the other side of the building. I heard loads of little girls screaming for help. I also heard men yelling, help, help, like extended, long, completely just horrific. And in between, bursts of popping sounds, like explosions, and pieces of material, like large pieces, as well as smaller pieces of ashes just stripping off the building and falling to the ground nearby, but also reaching some of the people standing when I was standing on the side of right next to Latimer Road train station. So yeah, that's what I've seen. I've also heard stories of people that have called from inside the flats and told their family members living elsewhere that they're not going to make it. I heard that one lady had to leave her disabled family inside the building to escape. Just really horrific, tragic stories, really. And it's very personal because everybody in this community, this is a densely populated area. There are loads of families with young people, and everybody knows everybody else. People have family members and friends in that building, and they're witnessing it firsthand.
Okay, Sophia, just stay on the line. Just very quickly, the Met Police have issued a travel update. They said the A4 is closed in both directions following that fire. Please avoid the area to allow emergency services access to this scene. So the A4 is closed in both directions following that fire. Sophia, I just want to come back to you and pick up on something you said. You spoke of community. Give me a sense of what would have been going on at that time. 12:30, 1:45 in the morning, given that it's Ramadan, the Muslim month of fasting, what would have been happening at that time? Would have lots of people been awake in their flats, out on the streets, breaking fast? What would have been happening?
Yeah, people would be inside their houses. Some people, we would have, so I'm Muslim myself, I had just eaten at 9:30ish, and I couldn't sleep. So suddenly I had a burst of energy after having all this food that I hadn't had throughout the day. And people are trying to drink water. Some people are at prayers. A lot of men are at prayers in mosques. And people just generally are not expecting something like this to happen. A lot of people living inside Grenfell Tower are Muslims. There are Somali families, Moroccan families, Eritrean families, a Lebanese family, apparently I heard. So yeah, people are preparing then at around 2:30ish in the morning to start fasting. But we just literally couldn't. We didn't eat. We usually would eat a little meal, light meal, but we couldn't. No one could focus. Everybody was completely transfixed. Everyone in the surrounding houses was just outside, just staring at the building in shock. People holding their heads in their arms. People shaking. People wailing because their family members are in there and they can't get through to them. They're not answering their phones. People, we're hearing people screaming, "Help! Help!" We're seeing the fire spread throughout the building and then fully engulf the building. So the sense of community was that as well. Had people, all different social classes, people living in council estates, low-rise buildings, as well as people living in, terrace housing, coming and looking and just transfixed and shocked. And the general feeling amongst everyone was just shock. Everybody's shocked. Everybody's sad. Everybody is horrified that we were witnessing people dying, basically. That I think was the main feeling, and just everybody hoping that beyond hope that people would be surviving. But then everybody realizing that the shape of the building kind of makes it a bit of a death trap. I mean, really, beyond the 16th floor, I would say, it's pretty much impossible. That has all burnt through. It's impossible for the fire brigade to reach there. I saw at the very beginning one water cannon putting out fire or attempting to cool the blaze on one side, and that only went up to about the 16th floor. And that's where we can see a man at the window. And basically, but beyond that, it's just burnt through. And I was surprised. I thought there would be some, plan in place, like perhaps there would be something from a helicopter, maybe sand or water, a flyby from a plane. I don't know what I was hoping for, but I think everyone was hoping for a miracle because we just didn't want to think that so many families would be perishing in this way. But also I can tell you another piece of information, that Kensington Aldridge Academy is immediately in front of this building. So there are loads of children that might be expecting to go to school today, and I would say to them, don't come near this area. It's not safe, but we've heard that perhaps this building will collapse, and there's no saying which direction, so it wouldn't be really safe. And also, there are local centres that people can go to. That's in the Christian Centre. People might be able to go into the Kensington Leisure Centre as well if they need help or if they have nowhere else to go. But yeah, this is an absolute tragedy, and it highlights the need for greater safety protocols. When the Kensington Aldridge Academy was built recently, I think it was completed last year or the year before, they basically redid the cladding on the outside of this building. And this cladding is what everybody has been saying in the community that has potentially been the reason that the fire has spread so quickly. If they'd had, concrete cladding, perhaps that as people speculate they had originally, perhaps it wouldn't have spread so quickly.
Okay, Sophia, thank you so much for talking to us. What is an extremely difficult time. Thank you so much. I want to bring you now, we've got an aerial still. There you go. That gives you a sense of where it is. That is an aerial still of Grenfell Tower, a huge plume of smoke. You can see the bottom of the building and just how much of that is destroyed now that the sun is coming up. Mark White is on the phone. Mark, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Hi, Mark. Morning to you. What can you tell us, Mark?
Yeah, I'm just in one of the many streets, Lockton Street, just about 100 yards or so from the tower block itself. And there's a huge police cordon around here with probably about 100 or so local residents who've been evacuated from their buildings that overlook the tower block here and brought down here. And just within the last couple of minutes, the police have just tried to push the cordon back a little bit as they get a grip of the area here and get more of their resources, and they're able to put a more sterile cordon around the block, because clearly there has to be a concern now that this fire has been raging unchecked pretty much since about 1 a.m. in the morning. About the structural safety of that building itself. And I know that the emergency services are now in the process of talking to and consulting with structural engineers about just how safe this block is likely to be as we go forward. As I say, lots of fire appliances here as well. Pretty much every single street that you go to, and I've been to quite a few to get to this location, there are fire appliances from all over London, from as far east as Whitechapel. I saw fire appliances, rescue appliances. There are high aerial platform units as well, but clearly they're restricting the height they can get to. There's no way they can get anywhere near a 27-story tall building. They're effective for the first few stories, and that is about it.
Okay, Mark, just stay with me. The former Chancellor and the editor of the Evening Standard, George Osborne, he's tweeted, obviously people waking up now to this news. George Osborne has said, just seen this awful tower block fire near my home in West London. My prayers with those affected and heroes tackling it. Mark, I want to pick up on a point you said. You spoke that there are fears for the structural integrity, but we've got Ashish Joshi on the ground there. He's seen someone trapped inside. What are they doing to help these people who are still in there?
Unfortunately, there's a big health and safety issue for emergency services as well. Of course, they want to get to anyone that might be trapped, but they're governed by a set of laws as well for their own protection. So their senior commanders are only going to allow them to go in to try and rescue people if it's safe to do so. Now, I don't know how high up this person was that Ashish saw and whether they're at all reachable by the aerial platform ladders, or whether it's just they're just too high up the building. If that's the case, then that's a real worry, because you can see every single floor from the second floor to the 27th floor has been affected severely by fire. And what I'm told is that the stairwells as well are all engulfed. So it's difficult to see how if they can't reach by aerial platform, the fire brigade would actually be able to get up to someone. Did Ashish mention how high this person was up the building?
Yes, if you look at the building on the left side, down at the bottom, there are some flats that seem from the exterior still to be intact. And I believe from what Ashish was saying, this gentleman is in there. He's been on the phone. He's been trying to get people's attention. And one of the people that Ashish was with went to the emergency services and explained to them that they'd seen someone in there. So if you look at the building...
He's not in the actual block of flats, is what you're telling me. It's a neighbouring building.
No, he is in the block of flats. But if you look at the block of flats at the bottom, I can't count how many floors up. We're showing it now to sort of the left, down at the bottom. There are some flats that look from the outside that they're still intact, and I believe from what Ashish was describing that the individual is in those flats.
Right, well, I mean, if that is then reachable by aerial platform, presumably
it looks, Mark, that it is,
are aware of this people.
It looks that you could get there, it looks like you could get there from an aerial platform.
Yeah, well, it's clearly a worry if there are still people inside. Certainly the early reports that we received suggested there were people up, the 11th floor and higher who were waving out of windows. Now, whether they were able to be reached and brought to safety before the entire building effectively was engulfed in flames, we simply don't know at this stage. The emergency services have enacted their major event protocols, so it's a major incident. They're dealing with that. They will get information out to us as members of the press, but it'll take a while.
Mark, have you been speaking to people who are in that building? How did they say they got out? Did they get out of their own accord, or did the firefighters, did they come in there and get them out?
Yeah, where I am, I've not seen anyone who was actually in the building. It's residents really from the local area, and there are hundreds of those residents who really since the early hours of the morning have been out of their flats for reasons of safety and really just put onto the street. I mean, some have come out because they want, they're aware of all the commotion. There are helicopters flying above here, fire engines on the streets and lots of noise. So some people have just come out for that reason. Others have actually been asked to leave their flats because of the close proximity to the tower block itself. So the people I've seen, lots of people, yes, confused and rather concerned about what's going on. Some of them still effectively in their night clothes, but no one from the building itself have I seen at this stage.
Okay, Mark White, thank you very much. Just to bring you up to date with transport, this building, Grenfell Tower, is in Lancaster West Estate. It's in Ladbroke Grove, close to Notting Hill, Holland Park, and it's close to the Ladbroke Grove and Latimer Road tube stations. We've had an update from the Met Police, and they've said that the A4 is closed in both directions following this fire. Please avoid the area to allow emergency services access to the scene. And that is not only the roads, they're saying the whole area, just avoid it. They've got a cordon down. It's going further and further out as we speak. Claudia Liza, my colleague, is with me. She has an update now. Claudia, what do you have to tell us?
Yeah, thanks, Kimberly. Let me just bring people up to date in terms of what they are seeing. You are seeing a fire at a block of flats in the Grenfell Tower on the Lancaster West Estate in West London. That's in Ladbroke Grove. Now, this fire, as you can see, has engulfed the building. Now, it starts from the second floor right to the top of this 27-storey building. And you are seeing a lot of smoke. Now, reports we are getting in that the fire is actually calming down a little bit from the bottom down, where the firefighters have been able to reach the fire with the engines and the equipment that they have. So at the bottom of the tower, you are seeing that actually they are making some ways in terms of tackling the fire. It's just reaching the top where they haven't been able to reach the very top levels of that tower, that they are still, as you're seeing, they're still dealing with a fire. But you are seeing this fire, which has engulfed a building in West London, the Grenfell Tower on the Lancaster West Estate. 200 firefighters are now at the scene. 40 fire engines are battling this large fire, and we are getting reports from police that they are dealing with a number of people who have been injured, largely for smoke inhalation. There's been no details of casualties, but we have spoken to witnesses who have told us that they have thought there are people trapped in that building, and indeed we've had our Sky News reporters at the scene saying that they know of potentially one person in that building trying to escape. They're saying they have seen one person trapped in there trying to get out of the building. Now, the advice firefighters and police are giving to people who potentially could still be trapped in that building is to get out. Do not wait. Do get out. Get a damp cloth, cover their faces, and to make sure they leave the building. But yes, just to bring you up to date, London Fire Brigade were called just before 1 o'clock this morning to the Grenfell Tower on Latimer Road, which is on the Lancaster West Council estate. Now, the building in North Kensington is around 27 stories high. We do believe that that fire essentially engulfed the entirety of that building, bar a couple of floors at the base. Now, the building has seen 40 engines attending the scene. This is 40 fire engines from across fire brigades across London are now attending the scene, with 200 firefighters tackling that blaze. And as I've said, police are saying that a number of people are being treated for a range of injuries, including 2 people for smoke inhalation. We've also had London Ambulance Service releasing a statement saying that they were called at around 1:30 this morning to reports of a fire at Lancaster West Estate. Then this isn't W11 in the Ladbroke Grove area of London. Now, we've sent a number of resources to the scene, including our hazardous area response team and more than 20 ambulance crews. We're working closely with London Fire Brigade and the Metropolitan Police, with our priority being to get people to safety and ensure they receive the medical help as quickly as possible. Our initial priority is to assess the level and nature of injuries and ensure those in the most need are treated first and taken to hospital. They will provide more information as and when they get that. But as it stands, we have got reports from police that a number of people have been injured. They are dealing with those people, potentially largely for smoke inhalations. There haven't been any reports of casualties as of yet. The fire, it does seem to look like firefighters are making way in tackling the fire, particularly at the bottom of the building. But as you get to the high levels where they had difficulty reaching the fire, that fire does still stand. It is still continuing. We've had the Metropolitan Police, as I said, they've tweeted an update saying residents continue to be evacuated from the tower block. A number of people are being treated for a range of injuries. We've also had the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, tweeting saying that he has now declared this a major incident at the Grenfell Tower in Kensington, where 40 fire engines and 200 firefighters are tackling that blaze. We've also been speaking to eyewitnesses at the scene. They've said that one person in particular spoke to our correspondent Ashish Joshi, saying that he managed to escape that blaze. He was already awake in the middle of the night, coming to the end of Eid, breaking his fast, and so he was able to hear that fire as it seemed to have broke at the building. He was reportedly saying that he believes that it could have been started by an appliance which exploded. This hasn't been confirmed. An investigation will take place to find out the cause of the fire. But as he's understood it, there was an explosion with an appliance. He was able to get his family out quickly. At the time when Ashish Joshi, our reporter, our correspondent, spoke to him, he said that he believed there were people still trapped within the building, people that he was speaking to in the building, just saying that they were still inside the building and he needed them to get out as soon as possible. The advice that police are giving to anybody trapped in the building is to get out, not to wait for anybody, but to get out, see if they can get a damp cloth and leave the building as soon as possible. But this is the latest we are getting from West London, and where firefighters are tackling a fire on the Grenfell estate, which is on the Lancaster West tower block in West London. We've also had a travel update for anybody travelling in the area, and the A4 is closed in both directions, and that is following that fire.
Let me jump in there. Apologies. The Met Police have corrected themselves. It's actually not the A4, it's the A40. So the A40 is closed in both directions following this fire, and the Met Police are saying please avoid that area to allow the emergency services access to the scene, because they are still working extremely hard to get this under control and get anyone who's still in that building out. If you're just waking up, you're going to set off on your commute. An update from Transport from London, and they say there's no service between Hammersmith and Edgware Road on the Circle and Hammersmith and City lines. And also the A40 is closed, as the Met Police have said there. So there is no service between Hammersmith and Edgware Road on the Circle and Hammersmith and City lines. An update on the building. This is Grenfell Tower. According to the building, it describes itself as having 120 homes. So one would assume that's 120 flats. It's 27 stories high. It was built in 1974 and then it was renovated between 2015 and 2016. This is according to the association itself. During that renovation, it was given new cladding and windows. And as we look at live pictures from West London, and as we've seen through the morning, this is a fire now that has been raging since 10 to 1 this morning. It's now 5:33 here in London. A lot of the debris has been falling away from that building. And the fire has it's gone from the second floor right up to the top. And as you can see just there in the left of your screen, there is still fire burning. You can see on the left of your screen, up at the top of the building. Fire services are still there. We've seen the hoses in action. And let's go, Claudia, Liza, you have someone we can hear
Yes,
from
indeed.
now?
Sky News have been at the scene speaking to witnesses, and we've got one we've just spoken to, and Michael was at the scene and was able to see that fire. Let's listen to him.
When were you woken up by the alarms?
No, I wasn't woken up by the alarms at all. They were very, very quiet alarms. I was in bed, I was on the verge of falling asleep, and I smelled plastic. I've got up, I've looked around the flat, checked the plugs, everything was okay. I went to the kitchen to smoke a cigarette. I've opened the window and I heard some woman saying it's getting bigger, it's getting bigger. So I've gone out to the hallway, I've looked through the spire hole, I see smoke everywhere. I've opened the door and the neighbours were there, the people screaming, the firemen said, get down the stairs. So I've grabbed the little girl, grabbed my girlfriend, ran out of the house, just in a pair of boxer shorts and a dressing gown. Someone gave me these clothes. And then this is it, and now we're here.
Hearing from Michael, one of the fortunate people who were able to escape as that fire, as you're seeing there at the Grenfell Tower, engulfed the building. He was able to say that he was able to get out, just quickly grabbed a dressing gown and was able to get out of that building, indeed before he, or indeed anybody he was with, were able to be injured. But we are speaking to a number of people who also were able to get out of the building. But Sky News have also reported, and Sky News reporters on the scene are saying that potentially there could be one person trapped in that building. There are reports that they have seen one person in this building on the Grenfell Tower on the Lancaster West estate, where 200 firefighters from fire crews across London have been tackling this blaze overnight. We got reports of this blaze just before 1 o'clock this morning, and 200 fire crews were sent there. Around 40 fire engines were sent to the building when they have been tackling that blaze. As you can see there, smoke, massive amounts of smoke coming out from the building. However, I have to say this is not as bad as what we were seeing earlier on this morning. We saw earlier the blaze completely engulfing this building. Now we are just seeing smoke, largely a little bit of fire around, but towards the bottom of that building where we once did see smoke, it looks like firefighters are making ways, and they are tackling that fire. And it looks like that fire has indeed calmed down, but you are still seeing the fire at the top levels of that tower, largely because of the inability, I guess you could say, for fire crews to reach that level, which is why they are now advising people, anybody who's trapped in that building, to get out. Do not wait to be evacuated. Self-evacuate is the message that they are sending to anybody still caught up in that fire. We haven't got any reports of casualties. However, we have heard of a number of people from police, from the ambulance service, that there are a number of people who have been injured. They are dealing with them largely for smoke inhalation.
OK, Claudia, Liza, I just want to talk about the community, because we've heard a lot of the witnesses speaking this morning. We've spoken to a couple of them over the phone. We have reporters in West London at the scene, and they've described the residents of this tower as predominantly people of the Muslim faith, of Islam, and they are at the moment, they are observing the holy month of Ramadan. So at that time of night, they would have been awake, just broken their fast. They would have either been outside the flats in the restaurants down below, or they would have been in their flats breaking fast. We have had reports this morning of someone still trapped inside that building. Sky News is on the scene, as I said, and our reporter Ashish Joshi has said that he has seen a man who's... Okay, the leader of Kensington and Chelsea councils is joining us on the line. Good morning to you.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Hello, Nick, can you hear me? It's Kimberly from Sky. No, we're having some problems with that, but we will go there as soon as we can. Let me just bring you up to date with what London Ambulance Service is saying. They were saying they were called at 1:29 this morning to reports of a fire at Lancaster West Estate. They sent a number of resources to the scene, including our hazardous area response team and over 20 ambulance crews. We're working closely with the London Fire Brigade and the Metropolitan Police. Let's go, there you go. I mean, that gives you just a sense of how enormous this fire is. That's a helicopter circling, I can't tell you how many kilometres, how many miles away, but if you look at that, that's a tiny helicopter. That gives you a sense of the scale, that huge plume of smoke. This is a 27-storey apartment block building that is on fire in West London. 120 flats in that block. We have no word of injuries. What we're hearing is that a number of people are being treated for smoke inhalation, excuse me. Initially, we had reports of 2 people being treated, but then the police came out, the Met Police came out and said that the evacuation is still ongoing. And we believe that evacuation is still ongoing. Even now, 3 or 4 hours after this fire started, there are still people. Our reporter on the scene has seen someone still inside that building. They're trying to get them out. Just a quick update, because people will be waking up now and they're starting their commute. The A40 is closed in both directions, so don't try and take that. And in terms of the tube, the Hammersmith and City Line Transport for London is saying that there's no service between Hammersmith and Edgware Road on the Circle and Hammersmith and City Lines. And the police say the A40 is closed in both directions due to that fire. Claudia Liza?
Yeah, well, let's bring you up to date, indeed, of what is going on here. A major fire, something that London Mayor Sadiq Khan is describing as a major incident. And this fire that broke out overnight, just before 1 o'clock this morning, or indeed at least that is when fire crew received calls from people that there is a fire on this estate. Now, what you are seeing here is just massive plumes of smoke reaching the capital's skies right now, which can just really gives you an idea.
Claudia Liza, I'm
of
sorry
the scale
to
of this
interrupt.
fire.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We have that interview now. Nick Padding-Brown, the leader of the Kensington and Chelsea Council. Good morning to you, Nick. Thank you very much for joining us. What is the latest? What can you tell us of what's happening here in terms of the emergency response?
Well, it's clearly an absolutely devastating fire. The emergency services and council support officers have been here for a number of hours trying to support residents who've been evacuated, but there are still the emergency services working on the fire and trying to establish if there are people still in the building. The council is providing support to residents and people who've been evacuated from their homes in nearby centres. And I think that's all I can tell you at this stage. Clearly, it's an absolutely devastating fire.
Indeed, Nick. Thank you very much for joining us. I just want to give an update, and that is that St Clement and St James's Church have opened their doors to people who've been evacuated and to other locals. So people can go there, St Clement and St James Church. Nick, thank you very much. I mean, back to you, Nick. How many people lived in this tower? Do you have any idea? I believe we've... Oh, Nick, Nick, can you hear me? Hello, Nick.
Not very well. Could you speak up? There's a helicopter overhead. I can't hear you very well.
Yes, no, I understand. It's a very difficult circumstances. How many people would have lived in this tower, Nick? This says about 120 homes.
Hello?
Hello, is that Nick?
Yes, speaking.
Hello, Nick, it's Kimberly. I'm still with you. How many people would have lived in this tower?
We're establishing that at the moment, but several hundred will have been in there. But it's a question of establishing how many people were in there at the time of the fire.
And what are you doing for the people who've been evacuated, who've lost everything?
We've set up emergency centres nearby, and people have been evacuated to those, where we're providing as much support as we can. And clearly, there will be further updates throughout the day on what we're doing to support people. But at the moment, the emergency services have set up a big cordon around the area, and it's quite hard to get accurate and up-to-date information. But the council will be doing everything it can to work with residents who've been evacuated.
Can I ask, sorry, Kimberly. Nick, this is Claudia Lyes, also at Sky News. Can I just ask, have you spoken to any residents at all? Have you spoken to anybody who's actually been evacuated?
Well, we can see that some people have been evacuated and they're being attended to by the emergency services, and I don't think it's appropriate for them to be interrupted by talking to me. But we will be, and the council will be, providing support to people in the emergency centres as soon as we can. But I think at the moment the main priority is to make the building safe and ensure that residents that we can evacuate are evacuated.
What about people inside? Do you know if there's anybody still in that building?
I don't know. That's a matter for the emergency services, and obviously we're awaiting information as to the latest position.
And that's right. You just mentioned it a moment ago. All thoughts and all work must be to making sure that this structure is safe. Just looking at the severity of this fire, what do we know about the structure? Are there any worries that it could collapse?
I'm really not in a position to answer any questions about the structure. I don't know. It's clearly been a devastating fire, and we will be awaiting an update from the fire service who's been here. I think the local community, the emergency services have all acted with immense speed and provided all the support that they can to those who've been evacuated. But clearly there's a lot more work to do to make the building, to evacuate the building and to establish how safe it is. This is a very, very severe fire.
OK, can you talk about the building itself? As a councillor, this building has actually just been refurbished just a couple of years ago. It was a basis of a multi-million-pound refurbishment. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. New heating, hot water systems, windows, and a major refurbishment. And it, at that point, was inspected, and we will have to await the study as to what the cause of this has been.
I mean, we've spoken to one eyewitness. He was very incredibly lucky. He was able to escape the building as the fire was breaking out, according to this eyewitness. And he did say, actually, this isn't anything new to the building. He has actually had to evacuate the building because of a fire before. Do you know of any fires at the Grenfell Tower previously?
This is a very major fire. There may have been individual flat fires, there occasionally are, but I can't comment on that anymore at this stage. And I don't really think there's very much more I can say other than to say that the emergency services are doing all that they can to secure the building and evacuate people to safety. And there's really little more I can say at this stage. So thank you very much. I need to go now.
So where are you going? So just very quickly, Councillor Nick, where exactly are you going to right now? What's the next steps for you? We've lost him. That was Councillor Nick Paget-Brown, Councillor for the Kensington and Chelsea area, just letting us know that the main priority is indeed to make sure that anybody injured are treated properly by services. He's also advising people they need to evacuate. The next stage is also just to make sure that building is safe and nobody else is injured in this building. This is the Grenfell Tower, which is the basis of a major incident right now where firefighters, around 200 firefighters from across London, are tackling a major blaze there. So we're just speaking to Councillor Nick Paget-Brown, who's saying that from what emergency services are telling him, it's essential that they tackle and deal with the people who've been injured in this. Have we just lost him, Jen? just there, but we have also spoken to eyewitnesses who've told us exactly what happened and what unfolded, at least from their perspective, as that fire broke out. And as it did break out, they were very fortunate and lucky enough to grab the very basic things such as bathrobes and just quickly evacuate the building. But one eyewitness we spoke to in particular said that though he was lucky enough to escape with his family, he knew of people still trapped inside the building. He was speaking to people within the building via mobile phone. We'll hopefully get an update on that. But Sky News reporters on the scene have said that they believe that they've seen one person trapped in the building as firefighters tackle that blaze. And as you can see there, it's a very, very tall building, a massive building, 27 stories high. And as you can see, fire equipment is actually tackling that blaze, with waters reaching, just up to halfway of that building. And as you can see, earlier on, if you did catch it, the blaze was massive, just completely engulfed the whole of that building. But now you can see firefighters, they are making ways. They are actually dealing with the fire towards the bottom of the building, however, reaching the middle and the upper levels, which, of course, as you can imagine, very difficult to get to. They haven't been able to really bring that fire down. Of course, they are tackling that. But as I say, the latest 40 fire engines are at this fire. Around 200 firefighters who have been deployed from fire crews from across London are now tackling this fire. And the latest from the Assistant Commissioner of London Fire Brigade, Dan Daly, saying that firefighters wearing breathing apparatus are working extremely hard in very difficult conditions to tackle this fire. As you can see there, it has been, this is a large and very serious incident, and we've deployed numerous resources and specialist appliances. Crew were called just before 1 o'clock this morning. They are still, as you can see there, at the scene, and they have fire crews attending from North Kensington, Hammersmith and Paddington, and indeed from surrounding fire stations are also there. The cause of the fire not known just yet. Of course, as you can imagine, investigation will take place. But right now, the priority is indeed to make sure that nobody is in the building, to bring the fire, to actually end this fire, to bring this blaze down, and of course, to treat anybody who has been injured at this time. But we are getting to about 10 to 6 this morning. Anybody just waking up, as you can see there, fire crews are tackling a major fire at Grenfell Tower, which is in West London on Latimer Road in Ladbroke Grove. Now, as you can see, this fire is massive. You are seeing massive smoke coming out. But earlier, just, an hour and a half before, this building was completely engulfed in fire. Fire crews were at the scene as soon as they received multiple calls of this fire, and they are making ways. What you are seeing now is just massive plumes of smoke leaving this building. The smoke has replaced what was a massive fire at this building. As you can see, their firefighters are making way. We've had the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, tweet declaring this a major incident right now in London, saying that indeed, just reiterating what fire crews and firefighters have been telling us, that 40 fire engines are at the scene, 200 firefighters there tackling the blaze, and they do seem to be making ways. I guess the priority right now is to make sure anybody who has been injured in that fire get the necessary treatment, and indeed make sure that people hopefully have been evacuated out of that building. We do have Sky News reporters and producers at the scene. They have said that they have seen potentially one person in that building. We will hopefully try and get an update from the scene just to find out what the latest might be on that situation. But as it stands, we do have more than 200 fire crews tackling this fire, which is at the Grenfell Tower, Lancaster West Estate in West London. And we've also had an update from the London Ambulance Service. They sent an update just around an hour or so ago, saying that they were called at about 1:30 this morning to reports of a fire at the Lancaster West Estate, which is in Ladbroke Grove. And they've sent a number of resources to the scene, including their hazardous area response team and more than 20 ambulance crews. They say they're working closely with London Fire Brigade and the Metropolitan Police, with our priority being to get people to safety and ensure they receive the right medical help as quickly as possible. Our initial priority is to assess the level and nature of injuries and ensure those in the most need are treated first and taken to hospital. That's the latest we are getting from the London Ambulance Service. And indeed, if you are on your way out this morning, if you are indeed will be using any transportation in the West London area. We've been told that the A40 has been closed in both directions as a result of this fire, as fire crew tackle this fire. And also, if you are using London transport, if you are using the Tube, the Hammersmith City lines and the Circle lines have been
I'm sorry
affected.
to interrupt you. That information is, of course, up on the TfL website, but I just want to interrupt you and go to Mark White, our correspondent. He's at the Kensington Community Centre, which is being used as an evacuation point. Mark White, what are people there telling you?
Yeah, we're in the Harrow Club. It's one of a number of community centres and other buildings around the immediate vicinity of this tower block where local residents are being brought to. They've been taken out of their house, not just, of course, in the tower block itself, but in some of the neighbouring buildings because of the concern that there is, understandably, about the potential for collapse of this building. We know that they're talking to, the emergency services are talking to structural engineers at the moment to see what can be done. You can see some of the elderly residents as well brought here, and they could be here for quite a bit of time, but they're being made very welcome here by the staff in this centre, given cups of tea and the like. We can actually talk now to a couple of residents who were evacuated from the tower block itself. Rooks Mahmoudou and her grandson T. Rooks, tell us, you were in the tower block itself. When did you become aware that something was happening?
At about 1 o'clock, I woke up to pee. And I always open my windows. Then I heard some unusual noise outside. So I peeped. Then I saw a lot of fire engines, policemen everywhere. So I stretched, I said to one of them, "Officer, what's going on?" He said, "Fire, get out."
So were the police not actually knocking on your door?
Nobody knocked on my door. I woke to pee. Then I quickly woke my grandson, gave him his dressing gown. Then we ran downstairs. And that's where we are now.
And, I mean, how large was the fire at that stage?
There was smoke everywhere. I inhaled some smoke when I got out of the building. So it means it was already at a big extent before I woke up. Maybe it was even the smoke that woke me up.
How concerned are you that it wasn't the emergency services that actually managed to knock you up, that you came up yourself, that you woke up yourself?
I woke to pee. Nobody woke me. Nobody.
And
I asked questions from the window.
And T, obviously you were asleep in your bed. Just tell us what happened.
Grandy woke me up. She said there was fire. I put on my shoes, my dressing gown, and went out. There were lots of fire trucks,
smoke.
Lots of smoke.
And all the emergency services were already arriving.
Such as ambulances and police.
Everything was there. They were there.
There were 200.
And we've heard reports that some people might have been trapped in the building. Do you think that's possible?
Very possible, because the staircase when we were coming out was already clouded with smoke. So if they couldn't go through the staircase, they can't go through the lift, there's no balcony for anybody to jump, of course they are there.
Well, I mean, we certainly know from what you've told us that even at that early stage, just after 1 o'clock, there was smoke everywhere?
About 10 minutes past 1.
And that smoke, was it filling the stairwells?
It filled the stairways. It was smoky when we got out.
So, I mean, it's possible if people were on the upper floors, it might have been difficult for them to get down.
Yes, definitely.
Well, you're here now, obviously, in a place of safety. They're looking after you?
Well, when we came in, there was some bananas, apple. Somebody gave us tea, cup of tea. Fine. I mean, they are doing their best. But the other thing I would like to say is when we were outside waiting for evacuation to this place, we got a taxi. The whole street were blocked. People were coming to look at what is going on. And the people escaping from there could not have a way out.
Yeah, we know that the fire brigade had difficulty reaching the scene as well because of all the
It's difficult for them to reach anywhere.
And you were telling me a little earlier, Rooks, that you've been in that building just 6 months, but it had been recently refurbished?
Well, so we were told that it was refurbished. My flat is a new flat, which they said how many millions, I don't know, the council is newly refurbished. And it was well inside, artificially, yes, but without fire protection and
I understand there was some kind of cladding on the outside of the building, is that right? Some kind of plastic cladding on the outside?
Yes, there are.
Did you see that? Was that on fire?
It wasn't on fire when I went out, no.
So obviously you don't know how long you might be stuck here. You could be here for the long haul.
I don't know. We've been out of my building now since 1:15.
So it's been for about 4 hours.
So no school for you today then?
Mm-mm.
Well, it has a plus side, I guess.
Oh, he loves his school.
Yeah, I'm in secondary school now. I'm in Year 7.
He loves his school.
Okay, well, we're very pleased to hear that you both managed to get out of the building safely. We can only hope that others manage to as well. Rooks and T, thank you for talking to us.
You're welcome.
So there you have it, just a story there from a couple of the survivors from this tower block who managed to get out. They said that they were not awoken by the emergency services. Having said that, it was very early on in the incident itself, just about 1:10. They were all arriving, so I'm sure that at some point they would have been knocking on doors, trying to get people down from that building. But as you heard from Rooks as well there was a lot of smoke even at that early stage, filling all the stairwells, so it might have been difficult to get people down safely from the building at that stage. We're here, as I say, in the Harrow Club. You can see more people arriving, being evacuated to here, and other clubs around the area at the moment.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much. So Mark there, he was talking to people who'd been evacuated from that building. He was in the Harrow Club. I just want to let you know that St Clement and St James's Church has also opened its door to people who've been evacuated and to other locals, so that's St Clement and St James's Church. So as day breaks, as we speak to more residents, we're hearing from people who were on the scene first, who were in that building. I just want to bring you this from Jody Martin. He's been talking to the Press Association. And he said, I grabbed an axe from the fire truck. It looked like there was a bit of confusion about what to do. He was on the scene as the first fire engine was arriving. He ran through the building looking for a fire escape and couldn't see any noticeable fire escapes around the building. A lot of debris falling down. Good morning to you. If you're just joining us, it is 6 o'clock. You're watching Sunrise. We are live in West London at the scene of a devastating fire. As the sun has come up, we can see the full extent of this fire. This is a tower block, Grenfell Tower, an apartment block, 120 flats in this building, 27 stories tall, and at about 1:45 o'clock this morning, police were called to reports of a fire. It was completely engulfed in flames just hours ago. The emergency services say they are treating a number of people for exposure to fire smoke inhalation. London Ambulance says we were called at 1:29 a.m. to reports of a fire at Lancaster West Estate, that's in West London. It's near the Westfield Shopping Centre near Notting Hill, Holland Park, White City. We've sent a number, this is London Ambulance Services, we've sent a number of resources to the scene, including our hazardous area response team and over 20 ambulance crews. We're working closely with London Fire Brigade and the Met Police, with our priority being to get people to safety and ensure they receive the medical help as quickly as possible. Our initial priority is to assess the level and nature of injuries and ensure those in the most need are treated first and taken to hospital. More information will follow when we have it. Jonathan Samuels is live in West London for us.
Kimberly, many thanks. Yes, we are live at the scene of this horrendous fire which began in the early hours of this morning in the Grenfell tower block here in Kensington on the Lancaster West Estate. Now, as you're looking at the tower block, you can see that it is a smouldering ruin. There are still some flames on some of the floors, but certainly a lot of the fire now seems to have burnt itself out. The fire service was called here at about 5 to 1 this morning. In total, 200 firefighters have been on the site, and I have to tell you, this part of West London now is incredibly busy. All the narrow streets around here are jammed with fire trucks, with ambulances, with police cars. Many roads are blocked. There is the thick stench of smoke in the air, and not only that, but a huge amount of ash and debris is covering the streets here of Notting Hill, West London and Kensington. Now, what we don't know are how many people have been affected by this. We know that hundreds live in the tower block. We know that many, thankfully, have managed to escape unhurt. We know that some have been injured. They've been treated at the scene. What we don't know are how many people were trapped inside and unable to escape, if indeed any. It's a 27-storey building. As you can see, it dominates the skyline here in West London. If you know this part of London, it's very close to the A40, the Westway, which will be a familiar road for people driving into the centre of town from the west of London. It's near the Westfield shopping centre, of course, which was built about 10 years ago, very popular destination for shoppers, near the old BBC headquarters at White City. And as I'm looking around, there are people in their pyjamas. There are people looking at this tower block just utterly shocked that this had happened so quickly. We know that the fire began in the early hours, and it wasn't long before the whole building was ablaze. What we're hearing is that it was refurbished at the end of last year. That refurbishment finished in around October, November, December time. The whole of the block was cladded, basically to make it look a little bit more attractive. Cladding was put onto the outside. A lot of work was done to refurbish it inside as well, and we're told that some gas works were conducted inside. We're trying to get confirmation about that. But as I say, fire crews still very much on the scene, trying to do what they can. But of course, the fire has been so intense, the heat has been so intense that many fire crews simply haven't been able to get close enough. What I want to do is bring in our correspondent Ashish Joshi, who's been here now for some time. Just describe to me the scene that you saw, Ashish, when you arrived.
Well, it was pitch black. It was about 2:30, maybe 2:45 in the morning, and you could see the fire, Jonathan, from miles around. I mean, I got here, there was a police cordon already in place. There were hundreds of residents, some of whom who had been evacuated from Grenfell Tower, others from nearby housing estates, just standing around in muted shock and disbelief. There are people who have left everything they own inside Grenfell Tower, escaped with their lives. I spoke to one resident who thinks the fire started in the flat next to his. He was woken by a neighbour who said one of his electrical appliances was on fire. And this resident told me that he had been involved in a fire in this tower before. He knew exactly what was going to happen. He said he told his wife, grabbed his children, and they ran for their lives. And that seems to be the story of the night. People leaving as quickly as they could. Now, I have to tell you, for the last hour or so, I've been watching with other shocked residents a man who has been trapped on about the, I don't know exactly what floor, but about the 11th floor. And he's been pacing up and down inside on a mobile phone, coming to the window. Now, he's been there for a considerable amount of time. But what seems to happen by a complete fluke is the fire has engulfed all the area on top and to the side of his flat, but he has a corner flat, and the fire and emergency services were dousing the side of the flat with water. I haven't seen him for the last 20, 25 minutes, so I'm hopeful that he has been rescued and he's been brought out. Other things to tell you, I was standing around watching this and a group of residents, mostly women, was screaming with delight. A 5-year-old girl had been evacuated, we don't know with her parents, but certainly she'd been pulled out after the fire had been raging for about 2 hours. So certainly the emergency service is doing all they can now.
Yeah, utterly terrifying to think that there may still be people inside. And Ashish, we have been speaking to some of those residents who were rescued and indeed people who watched these flames going up. Let's have a listen.
Just before 1 a.m. we got a huge knock on the door. My wife and I was awake, our 2 kids were asleep. It was a strange knock, so I kind of just went for it, just find out what it was about. There was no one at the end of the door. When I opened it, there was no one else. There was no one there. It's just a lot of smoke. It's just dark. And I slammed the door shut. Didn't even lock it or anything. I just slammed it shut, so there's no more smoke coming in because I knew I don't want the kids to suffocate and stuff. This is too much. So this is the second incident that I personally have been in where there was fire. So I thought, well, this is just something I knew how to handle. So I got towels. I waited out before I woke the kids up with wet towels in my hand, screaming down the hallway to the wife. She's in the living room. So I screamed out. I said, "Hey, there's fire!" Like literally, I'm not kidding. There's fire. Like people on the left-hand side of the building were screaming out, "Help us!" Sticking their heads out the window. People were waving phones for invisibility because there's so much smoke coming around right now. The left-hand side caught smoke really fast. I think it's due to it's hard to speculate now, but I would say the cladding and all this fixes is what caused the fire to just erupt in under an hour.
Do you know if there are people still inside?
We do know there's
How do you
people.
know?
We've received phone calls. We've got family and friends still in there. There is someone trapped in 81, a 5-year-old girl. We wish her all the best, man. Honestly, man. We wish her all the best. There's still some families coming out. There is more fire brigade and more firefighters going in there with the oxygen tanks and first aid kits and all sorts of stuff.
I wasn't woken up by the alarms at all. They were very, very quiet alarms. I was in bed, I was on the verge of falling asleep, and I smelled plastic. I've got up, I've looked around the flat, checked the plugs, everything was okay. I went to the kitchen to smoke a cigarette. I've opened the window, and I heard some woman saying it's getting bigger, it's getting bigger. So I've gone out to the hallway, I've looked through the spire hole, I see smoke everywhere. I've opened the door, and the neighbours were there, the people screaming, the firemen said, "Get down the stairs." So I've grabbed the little girl, grabbed my girlfriend, ran out of the house, just in a pair of boxer shorts and a dressing gown. Someone gave me these clothes, and then this is it, and now we're here.
What time was that? How many hours?
Must have been about 1 o'clock in the morning.
1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
What floor did you live on?
7th.
7th floor.
And it started on the 4th. And so we had to come down the stairs, and as we was going past it, the smoke was disgusting. It's all the plastic on the building that's done it.
Did you see a lot of people evacuating?
Yeah, I did, but also I heard a lot of screams, and I could see, after I got outside, I was looking up and I could see people banging on the windows, and there was fire all around them. It was horrendous.
Well, some of the terrifying stories there of people caught up in this huge fire in West London. You can only imagine, can't you, how utterly terrifying it must be to know that you're high up in that tower block, you can smell smoke, you know it's on fire, and yet you're wondering how on earth you're going to get out, if you're going to get out. So some of the stories there from those trapped inside. I should tell you, as you were listening to that, we can hear bangs and pops coming from the building. We know that debris is falling off it, and of course one of the real fears is that it could collapse in this densely populated part of London, and as a result of that some of the homes around the tower block are being evacuated by police. I just want to bring in someone who saw the fire in the early hours this morning, lives very close. This is Joanna Connor and her son Erin. Thanks for being with us, Joanna. So just explain to me what you saw first thing this morning.
Yeah, so at about 2 a.m. we were woken up by screaming, sirens and then helicopters, and came outside and were confronted with the building that was completely engulfed in flames. It was a real shock, and there were hundreds of people lining the streets. We could still hear screaming from the buildings. People were milling around sort of in shock and crying, and one of our neighbours, her sister, husband and children were in the building. In fact, that was the gentleman that was speaking to you earlier that said that it was his neighbour's house that caught fire. So, you know, it's close to us. We've got neighbours whose families were in that building. One of our neighbours' family member is still not accounted for. So it's rocked this community. And I mean, as far as I'm aware, the fire started on the 4th floor, and within 15 minutes, the entire building was ablaze from bottom to top. There had been refurbishments last year to the building, interior and exterior, and a sort of a fascia, a coating, had been put around the block to make it look more appealing. And I mean, if you look at the fire, you can see it's unprecedented. I've never seen anything like that in my life. And residents are asking questions about the safety of that material around the building. So we're all hopeful that there's going to be an investigation into that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we haven't spoken yet to the council. We're going to do that and get their thoughts on this horrific blaze. We know that we can still see flames actually from one of the floors. They're still going.
6 hours later.
Yeah. Have you? And you were saying that you've spoken to friends and people who are living inside, and so far they're all okay.
Well, no, as I say,
they have family members that are, or people that they know quite closely that are still trapped in the building that we know of anyway. Maybe they're in hospital, because we chatted to someone that they said that they would contact us when they have found out all the names of the people in hospital. But still, right now, there are still explosions of the gas pipes. There's still black smoke from the newly just came fire. It's horrendous. I've lived here 8 years of my life. I've lived here pretty much all my life, and I've never seen anything as bad as this. I've had a house fire before. It wasn't as bad as this. I've seen people like Trellick Tower in Goulburn. They've house fires, but because it was stone. The house was made of stone. How it wouldn't be able to get out, but because it is plastic. It was
but apparently one of your school friends is unaccounted for.
Yeah, one of my school friends is gone missing. A 13-year-old girl called Jessica. She's gone missing. She lived in the house next to it.
Well, we can only hope, can't we, that people have managed to get out and are safe.
A neighbour's family member is unaccounted for as well. But as we say, leisure centre, certain centres have been taking people in from the tower block. Some people are obviously at the hospital, so we're really, really hopeful that they're okay. My son attends the school right next to the building.
The same material.
And that school is made of apparently it's made of the same material that coated that block. So, you know, we're concerned about that as well.
Yeah, certainly, this is all going to form part of the investigation once the fire is finally out. What's it like inside? We know that these blocks have been up now for many years. Things are very different now in how estates are built and designed. You've been inside. What you've not been inside?
I've actually been inside. Have you been inside?
Yeah, there's a nursery bottom floor, so the actual bottom. There was, as I recall, there was a gym on top of it, and that took up about 3 floors. And then above that is where the houses are. And apparently, from residents that live there, they have put 3 floors under the ground. But hopefully, them floors have been safe. I heard that it's only gone to the 2nd floor, the fire. So the bottom floor and the bottom floor is safe. Apparently, the nursery hasn't been set on fire. It only got to the 2nd.
Started on maybe on the 2nd floor.
I mean, according to some residents who live in the block that I've been speaking to, there was only one route of escape, the fire well. Allegedly, there were gas pipes that were fitted into that stairwell that allegedly residents had protested against previously. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, that's a concern as well.
It's certainly something that we're going to find out in the coming hours and days. What has struck me is what a remarkable community this is. Everyone has come out on the streets to help people who are affected. Water, food has been provided to people who are literally in their pyjamas and dressing gowns.
A neighbour's taken in one of the residents' children, a couple of kids, because they needed to get up to the council to find out, you know, where are they going to be placed. I gave them the cab fare to get up there, because obviously they've left everything inside there and just got out because their lives come first. Yes, I mean, the aftermath of that is, you know, you've got, 200 families displaced now. They need rehousing. I mean, everybody's going to be in shock, traumatised. of course we're doing as much as we can as a community. This is a community, it's not just an area of London, it's a real community. You've got to remember this is the home of the carnival, so that always brings residents together. So everybody really knows everybody around here, and we're doing as much as we can to pull together.
What have the police told you? Because we know that some areas are going to be evacuated because they're worried now that this building could collapse.
Absolutely, because the fire was raging through the building for a good 4 or 5 hours. So and it was so powerful.
It was from our house. And
you could really feel the heat just from where we were standing, and we're a good few hundred yards away. The police have said that at this stage they are concerned that the building could collapse, but even then, if it doesn't collapse, please God, we may still have to be evacuated at some point because they might have to bring the building down.
And the dust from that could be dangerous, getting people's lungs.
So the aftermath of this is going to go on for some time to come.
Yeah.
The impact on this community is unprecedented. This will go down in history.
Yeah, and just as we're watching, actually, we can see that the flames seem to have got stronger in the last few moments since we've been talking. A big lump of the building just fell off then. This could go on for the rest of the day, couldn't it? Because what's interesting, the fire crews aren't up on ladders, they're not up on platforms. No. The heat is so intense.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, when the fire brigade was sort of coming backwards and forwards to get equipment, you could literally feel the heat off of them. You could smell the fire off of them. Yeah, it was really intense. I've got to say that the firefighters are incredibly brave. They've risked their lives to get people out of there, and they've been fighting all night long. The emergency services were, as good as they could possibly be. I believe that one officer said he's come in from as far as Harrow.
Yeah.
So they've had to pull resources from all over London to fight this fire.
Yeah, just to cordon off.
But of course, you've got to remember as well, around the tower block, you get a lot of wind. It really picks up. Even on a hot day, you walk around there and you're cold. The wind is whipping round. So, of course, that's going to have some effect on fanning the flames as well. And then we don't know what kinds of materials are inside the building. You can hear the popping sometimes. That was a lot more intense at the beginning of the fire. So we're thinking that might have been little gas explosions from, gas cookers or whatever. But apparently this all started because of a refrigerator.
A domestic appliance, could have started it. Okay, Joanna and Aaron, thank you so much for your time, and best of luck if you do have to be evacuated later. I hope things go well, and I hope you hear from those friends inside. Thanks for that for the moment. We are hearing in the last few moments that 30 people have been taken to hospital so far as a result of this blaze. We're hearing that from the West London Ambulance Service. They've been taken to 5 hospitals in the area, so an extremely busy morning for paramedics and ambulance crews here. And Ashish is back with me now. And one thing that strikes you when you come to this part of London, Ashish, is that it is densely packed. There's a huge amount of housing, a huge amount of flats and estates, and it's actually been quite difficult for the fire crews, the ambulance crews and the police to get close because the roads are heavily congested, a lot of parking, and it's not the easiest area to navigate by a long stretch.
No, really narrow streets, densely packed, lots of housing estates, all centred around the old tower blocks as they were put up back in the 60s and 70s. There's a school, an academy right directly underneath that tower block. Lots of concerns from residents I've been speaking to throughout the night about the way the cladding was put up on the building. They said it used to be just concrete. There had been fires there before which had broken out, but had been contained to 1 or 2 floors. Now this one, you can see from our picture here, it's gone right to the very top of the 27th floor. Speaking in the last couple of minutes, Jonathan, to residents here, and they tell me more people have been evacuated. So that's some good news, that people are being found, they are being taken away. And I try to go back to find out what had happened to the man I was telling you about earlier, who was seen at his window pacing up and down. He isn't there anymore, and I'm hopeful that the emergency services have got to him. They were certainly dousing the side of his flat with water, and I saw a crane going up earlier, but that's as much as I saw. Other people who were following the emergency or the crisis. I've been speaking to them and said, has he got out? And they said they simply don't know. So fingers crossed that he has been reached. Other people have been reached. I told you a little earlier on about these women who were screaming with delight when one of their friends said that a little 5-year-old girl had been pulled out, she'd been taken away. Also, I ought to stress that you were talking about the communities and the packed streets, the housing estates. Huge North African community here, huge Somali community. That is significant because a lot of people were awake at the time because they are observing Ramadan, and because they had broken their fasts earlier in the evening, or had they just eaten, they were up, they were awake, and that might have saved hundreds of lives. We don't know, but certainly speaking to residents like Safi earlier on, she's from that community. She says there are so many Muslim communities who live in this particular part of West London observing Ramadan who would have been awake at 1 o'clock in the morning. If they were awake, it would have been easier to evacuate them, so certainly that would have worked in their favour.
And what about these reports, Ashish, that we've heard from some eyewitnesses of lights being shone in the top floors in the early hours, maybe torches or lights on mobile phones, people perhaps signalling for help?
Yeah, the eyewitness or the witness accounts are very difficult to listen to because we're talking about people who are trapped inside a tower block, 27 stories high. Again, going back to Safi, when I spoke to her early on, when this fire began, she said she lives a block away. She says she could hear people screaming. So you think how terrifying that is. You could hear people screaming, trying to get access to other people who are still trapped inside, because the difficulty with this is if you're trapped on one of the higher floors and the stairwells are on fire, how do you get out? We don't know what the provisions for fire exist inside. We've spoken to the leader of the council, and I have to say, when he was speaking to Sky News, there were a lot of residents who surrounded him, quite clearly emotional, distressed, but very angry. Big question marks being raised about the level of safety within that particular tower block.
Yeah, and we've heard, again, reports, and we need to corroborate this, about fire alarms perhaps not going off immediately.
Somebody I spoke to who had been evacuated, who thinks that the fire started in a flat next to his, said there were no alarms. There were no alarms. Somebody said there were no sprinkler systems. We ought to stress we don't know how much of this is true and how much of it isn't. Emotion is running high. There are clearly so many people who are distressed, who've seen everything they own go up in flames. They have nothing left except the clothes that they are standing in. The leader of the council said there are community centres which are opening up to take these people in. Obviously, the priority for the moment for the emergency service people who are working there is to make sure everyone they can get to does get outside, and then once they're outside, the care and provision is in place to support them. I ought to say that there was a very touching scene a little earlier on when there were fire crews who were coming away from the fire because of a change in shift. They would have been working there for about 3 hours. There were a group of youths who were standing by who started saluting, clapping and patting these firefighters on the back as they walked away from this. So that will give you an indication of just how much support there is for not just the emergency services, but how much the community here will be fearing the worst and hoping that they've been able to do their jobs tonight.
Yeah, no, we've got to certainly praise the firefighters' efforts. They really have done a sterling job. Ashish, for the moment, thank you very much. Do stay with us, though, if you can. We know 200 firefighters have been involved in this blaze, trying to bring it under control. As you can see, probably fire engines dotted all around the area. Every street has got fire crews, ambulances and police on standby or doing what they can. Mark White is our correspondent on the other side of the tower. He's got a different perspective on what's going on here. Mark, what can you see? Talk us through it.
Well, where I am, again, just one of the streets, just not too far from one of the local community centres where local residents are being cared for at the moment, people that have been evacuated from the tower block and surrounding buildings. I'm just going to step out of the way and let our cameraman get you a shot of the side of the building. It's still very heavily clad in smoke, and every now and again eruptions of flames from some of the upper windows. So this is still a fire, certainly on the upper floors, that is not under control. And that's to be expected because effectively the hose reels that the fire brigade have got trained on that building are effective to about halfway up the 27-storey building. Any higher than that, and they're struggling. There are high-rise water systems normally that operate within these buildings. We don't know just how affected they have been by the fire itself and whether firefighters are managing to sort of work their way up stair by stair, flat by flat from the bottom up. You would imagine that if it's safe, they would certainly be trying to do that, but we have no indication that that building is at all safe. In fact, every belief that it might not be too safe, given that a lot of the neighbouring buildings around here have been evacuated, the residents cared for in a number of community centres around here. Jonathan, I was speaking to a grandmother, Rooks Mamumbu, in the community centre just about 15-20 minutes ago, and she had quite a dramatic story to tell of how she was woken about 1:10. She smelt the smoke, saw that the building was just engulfed in smoke through all the corridors. She went outside and saw the police officer who shouted fire to her and told her to get out. We can listen to what Rooks told us. She was with her grandson T. We can actually talk now to a couple of residents who were evacuated from the tower block itself. Rooks Mamudu and her grandson T. Rooks, tell us, you were in the tower block itself. When did you become aware that something was happening?
At about 1 o'clock, I woke up to pee. And I always open my windows. Then I heard some unusual noise outside. So I peeped. Then I saw a lot of fire engines, policemen everywhere. So I said to one of them, "Officer, what's going on?" He said, "Fire, get out."
So were the police not actually knocking on your door?
Nobody knocked on my door. I woke to pee. Then I quickly woke my grandson, gave him his dressing gown. Then we ran downstairs. And that's where we are now.
And, I mean, how large was the fire at that stage?
There was smoke everywhere. I inhaled some smoke when I got out of the building. So it means it was already at a big extent before I woke up. Maybe it was even the smoke that woke me up.
How concerned are you that it wasn't the emergency services that actually managed to knock you up, that you came up yourself, that you woke up yourself?
I woke to pee. Nobody woke me. Nobody.
And
I asked questions from the window.
And T, obviously you were asleep in your bed. Just tell us what happened.
Grandy woke me up. She said there was fire. I put on my shoes, my dressing gown, and went out. There were lots of fire trucks,
smoke,
lots of smoke.
And all the emergency services were already arriving.
Such as ambulances and police.
Everything was there. They were there.
There were 200.
And we've heard reports that some people might have been trapped in the building. Do you think that's possible?
Very possible, because the staircase when we were coming out was already clouded with smoke. So if they couldn't go through the staircase, they can't go through the lift, there's no balcony for anybody to jump, of course they are there.
Well, I mean, we certainly know from what you've told us that even at that early stage, just after 1 o'clock, there was smoke everywhere?
About 10 minutes past 1.
And that smoke, was it filling the stairwells?
It filled the stairways. It was smoky when we got out.
So, I mean, it's possible if people were on the upper floors, it might have been difficult for them to get down.
Yes, definitely.
Well, you're here now, obviously, in a place of safety. They're looking after you?
Well, when we came in, there was some bananas, apple. Somebody gave us tea, cup of tea. Fine. I mean, they are doing their best. But the other thing I would like to say is when we were outside waiting for evacuation to this place, we got a taxi, the whole street were blocked. People were coming to look at what is going on, and the people escaping from there could not have a way out.
Yeah, we know that the fire brigade had difficulty reaching the scene as well because of all the
It's difficult for them to reach anywhere.
And you were telling me a little earlier, Rooks, that you've been in that building just 6 months, but it had been recently refurbished?
Well, so we were told that it was refurbished. My flat is a new flat, which they said how many millions, I don't know, the council is newly refurbished. And it was well inside, artificially, yes, but without fire protection and
I understand there was some kind of cladding on the outside of the building, is that right? Some kind of plastic cladding on the outside?
Yes, there are.
Did you see that? Was that on fire?
It wasn't on fire when I went out, no.
So obviously you don't know how long you might be stuck here. You could be here for the long haul.
I don't know. We've been out of my building now since 1:15.
So it's been for about 4 hours.
So no school for you today then?
Mm-mm.
Well, it has a plus side, I guess.
Oh, he loves his school.
Yeah, I'm in secondary school now. I'm in Year 7.
He loves his school.
Okay, well, we're very pleased to hear that you both managed to get out of the building safely. We can only hope that others manage to as well. Rooks and T, thank you for talking to us.
You're welcome.
So there you have it, just a story there from a couple of the survivors from this tower block who managed to get out. They said that they were not awoken by the emergency services. Having said that, it was very early on in the incident itself, just about 1:10. They were all arriving, so I'm sure that at some point they would have been knocking on doors, trying to get people down from that building. But as you heard from Rooks as well there was a lot of smoke even at that early stage, filling all the stairwells, so it might have been difficult to get people down safely from the building at that stage. We're here, as I say, in the Harrow Club. You can see more people arriving, being evacuated to here, and other clubs around the area at the moment.
Mark, we're hearing a little bit more about this tower block. We're learning more as every minute goes by. There are 120 homes inside, flats inside this block, which was built in 1974. It was renovated in 2015 and 2016, which goes along with what a lot of residents are telling us and eyewitnesses. A lot of work was done both inside and outside, including the building being clad, largely to make it look a little bit more attractive. We know that these tower blocks do dominate the skyline in West London. We're also being told by a spokesperson from Kensington and Chelsea Council that several hundred people lived inside. Mark, what are you seeing where you are? Where we're standing, we can still see flames licking at the building, coming through the windows, which have been blown out now, of course. Are you still seeing flames from the side of the building where you are?
Yeah, there are still pockets of flames inside the buildings, particularly on the upper floors. On the lower floors, the fire has pretty much burnt itself out, but inside the building, and of course, an hour or so ago, the flames were licking out of the windows, but actually inside, further into the flats themselves, there are clearly pockets of flames, and every now and again you see quite considerable flames erupting from the building itself. It's interesting you talk about upwards of 300 people inside that building. It will have been a very difficult process to try to knock on all of those doors. 120 flats within that 27-storey building. This fire took hold very quickly, and what that eyewitness was telling me just a short time ago, when she was evacuated from the building, and this was very early on, just about 1:10, already at that stage the corridors were filled with smoke. So asking anyone to try and come down a 27-storey building if the corridor is filled with smoke, well, they're probably not going to do that. If they do that, there's a high chance they could be overcome by the smoke itself. So in the hours ahead, we will get an idea from the emergency services about whether everyone was brought from that building safely, or whether they do fear that some people, particularly in the upper floors, were trapped in there. And if they were, you've got to be very, very concerned for them, because you can see from every angle that we're offering you that every single flat, pretty much apart from one lower section, one side of the lower section, 2 or 3 flats, pretty much every flat has been absolutely gutted by the flames there. So extremely concerning times for the emergency services, but they can't get in there to begin that search until, one, they've managed to ensure that all of the flames have been knocked back, and two, that they can get assurances from structural engineers that there's no danger of collapse within that building. Fire service management, of course, have got a responsibility to ensure that their firefighters, who of course are always keen to get in there and try and effect a rescue, they've got to ensure that these firefighters are kept safe as well. We know from past incidents, the most famous of course being the Twin Towers terror attack, when an hour or two into that attack, those buildings collapsed one at a time, firefighters running in and desperately trying to lead people to safety. So with that in mind, with the possibility that there could be a weakened infrastructure within that tower block, the fire service will be working their way up there when they know it's safe to do that.
Indeed. Thank you very much for now, Mark. Well, if you're just joining us, we're live in West London, where there has been a horrific fire overnight in a tower block. We're here in the borough of Kensington and Chelsea in West London, where a tower block caught fire in the early hours of this morning. We're going to show you some of the pictures now from overnight, and you can get a real sense of just how fierce this blaze was. This is the Grenfell Tower on the Lancaster West Estate, a tower block which really dominates the skyline here in West London. We know that there are 120 flats in this building. We know that the fire brigade were called at about 5 to 1 this morning, the ambulance service shortly after that, and the fire really did take hold extremely quickly. I want to speak now to someone who lives inside that block and managed miraculously to escape the fire this morning. Mehmet is with me now. Just talk me through what happened.
Well, it's about just before 1 a.m. We were eating and just about to go to bed when there was a sudden knock on the door. I rushed to the door, but there was no one else on the other side. It was smoke. It was horrific. Just slammed the door shut. I knew immediately what situation it was. So what I done is I wear up some towels and immediately notified my wife. He said, "Let's fire. We need to get out of here." You know, just picked up some towels, wrapped it around the kids' heads. Barely had time to put shoes on. It's just stumbled on one over another. It's just went out the room, just evacuated as soon as we could. It was really like traumatizing. There was people down the stairs. There's some people carrying luggages. There's elderly. There was disabled. There was kids. It was really like terrifying. It was just incredible to get out of there, to be honest with you. It's shocking. It was too much. There was some security barriers by the bottom of the stairs where we got stuck. We couldn't get out of the building because you need a key fob, and luckily we had a fob. By the time we come out, we were the first maybe 10 families that were out, and there was some people rushing back in to try and notify more people. There was no alarm. There was no bell. There was no sense of urgency in a sense. The fire brigade that was there was only about a handful. They're analysing the situation. My neighbour was the one who woke us up, not woke us up, but knocked on our door. And he said it was his house where the explosion has happened. He said his fridge exploded. I'm not there to take any more understanding from him. I just knew, we need to get out of there. He was barefooted. He was knocking on doors. I knocked on several doors on my way there myself. Just Went down the stairs after that, couldn't take any of the smoke, and we just had to leave because we had kids in our hands. There's people with luggages on the stairs. It was hazardous. It was too much. There was gas pipes that we were very hazardous as well to go through the stairwell because of the gas pipes that were connected there. So we didn't know where the explosions or these smoke and fire is coming from. So we were just really terrified. And the priority was to get everyone out of there as soon as we could. Once we were out, we obviously kept the distance from the building, but within under an hour, half of the building was already covered in flames. People are still trapped in there. People are definitely still trapped in there. We've had some calls. There's people who have been tweeting and saying they're still alive and they're still in their room, locked in their room. I heard of a kid that is in his room still trapped.
We're still waiting to hear the very latest on how many people have managed to escape. We know 30 people are in hospital, 5 hospitals in London. Are you trying to get in touch with neighbours, with
There's
other people, and their
yeah.
phones are ringing, but you're not getting a reply?
Yeah, well, phones, everything we left in there. So some family members and friends, we can't even get in touch with them because it's no means. A lot of people would have left their belongings in there. It's still trying to make some sense of this. There is the rugby centre and there's Harrow Club that we got to go and look for family and friends. But
you're remarkably composed, given what's happened. I can only imagine the terror and the fear going through your mind when you were grabbing your kids and trying to get out. What floor do you live on?
I live on the 4th floor, and the fire started on the 4th floor. Fire started next door to us, so we had a very condensed sense of smoke right in front of us, right at our doorstep. It was really horrific. I just pray for the people that are left inside and the people that are still looking for their loved ones. To be honest with you, we got very lucky. We got extremely lucky. Our thoughts and our prayers are with the people that are left inside the building. We wish them all the best, and we hope that they survive. That's it, really.
Of course, we're all praying for that. Given that you live on the 4th floor and it was relatively straightforward to get down the stairs, you're in no doubt that people higher up won't have been as lucky.
No, they wouldn't have been, because the stairway is, like I said, it's riddled with gas pipes. So all these explosions that's been happening from 1 o'clock onwards, it could be either stairwell. There's a stay put policy at Grenfell Tower when there's a fire incident, which says to stay put where you may be at the time of discovering a fire, and the stay put policy would be keeping people in their places, supposedly. Some people are trapped. The smoke is too much. Before anyone dies from the burns, the smoke itself and the inhalation of the smoke is too much. It's really condensed. And there is a ventilation system also in Grenfell Tower where the smoke is being constantly ventilated outwards and up towards the top of the building. So a lot of smoke would constantly be just getting dragged up and getting pulled up. And so the people at the top would most definitely be stranded. The fire brigade were not able to, the response units were not able to immediately get here until about 1:30. So we didn't see the cranes or the ladders or anything go up. From my knowledge, according to House 16, where the fire started, it's an explosion from his fridge. Now, according to some fire brigade, it's electrical fire, and according to the gentleman whose house where the fire has begun is due to his fridge. So this is all electrical fire. It was harder to wrap the head around it and get on with it. They had to analyse, report and find out what was going on first. But it did start off just at the height of a tree, the fire, because that was level 4 where the fire happened. Before you know it, it took the whole right-hand side of the building, which is towards the KAA which is the Kensington Aldrich Academy. And at that point, there was a lot of people on the left-hand side of the building opening their windows, screaming out help. Some lights were coming on. Some people were sleeping, you know, so they were not aware. There was no alarm. The alarm did not go off. This is something I'm stressing on. The alarm did not go off to notify the people and the tenants of Grenfell Tower. The bell did not go off. There should have been a sense of a bell. There was no bell. This is something I have to stress. There was no bell. I am lucky, and my wife and my kids are lucky we are alive, simply because the gentleman where the fire has started, he was courteous enough to knock on everyone on his floor, knock on the doors and try and get them out. But there was no bell. We did not hear a bell up until about 1:30 when we were outside the building. So this is, I don't know what is going on, but to be honest with you, it's just...
Well, it's certainly going to form part of the investigation, and we are going to speak to the council shortly. Just finally, how are the children now? How's your wife?
My wife is in shock. She's in a proper shaky state. My two kids, the state in which they woke up was just incredibly shocking, but they are safe, they are alive. There's some people whose loved ones are missing, and some in worse circumstances. Really, truly, I'm very grateful. Like I said, this is a moment to reflect for those who are trapped in there, those whose lives are in a very difficult position.
Well, Mehmet, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for talking to us, and we wish you the very best of luck, and the same to your family as well. Thank you. Thank you. Someone there who lived on the 4th floor, who managed to escape, thankfully, with his family in the early hours of this morning. But as we heard there, utterly terrifying, trying to get out with thick smoke and knowing that flames are coming up the building. Now, in the last few moments, we have spoken to the leader of Kensington and Chelsea Council, Councillor Nick Paget-Brown. This is what he had to say.
Well, it's clearly an absolutely devastating fire. The emergency services and council support officers have been here for a number of hours trying to support residents who've been evacuated. But there are still the emergency services working on the fire and trying to establish if there are people still in the building. The council is providing support to residents and people who've been evacuated from their homes in nearby centres. And I think that's all I can tell you at this stage. Clearly, it's an absolutely devastating fire.
How many people lived in this tower? Do you have any idea?
We're establishing that at the moment, but several hundred will have been in there. But it's a question of establishing how many people were in there at the time of the fire.
And what are you doing for the people who've been evacuated, who've lost everything?
We've set up emergency centres nearby, and people have been evacuated to those, where we're providing as much support as we can. And clearly, there will be further updates throughout the day on what we're doing to support people. But at the moment, the emergency services have set up a big cordon around the area, and it's quite hard to get accurate and up-to-date information. But the council will be doing everything it can to work with residents who've been evacuated.
Can I ask, sorry, Kimberly. Nick, this is Claudia Lyes, also at Sky News. Can I just ask, have you spoken to any residents at all? Have you spoken to anybody who's actually been evacuated?
Well, we can see that some people have been evacuated and they're being attended to by the emergency services, and I don't think it's appropriate for them to be interrupted by talking to me. But we will be, and the council will be, providing support to people in the emergency centres as soon as we can. But I think at the moment the main priority is to make the building safe and ensure that residents that we can evacuate are evacuated.
What about people inside? Do you know if there's anybody still in that building?
I don't know. That's a matter for the emergency services, and obviously we're awaiting information as to the latest position.
And that's right. You just mentioned it a moment ago. All thoughts and all work must be to making sure that this structure is safe. Just looking at the severity of this fire, what do we know about the structure? Are there any worries that it could collapse?
I'm really not in a position to answer any questions about the structure. I don't know. It's clearly been a devastating fire, and we will be awaiting an update from the fire service who've been here. I think the local community, the emergency services have all acted with immense speed and provided all the support that they can to those who've been evacuated. But clearly there's a lot more work to do to make the building, to evacuate the building and to establish how safe it is. This is a very, very severe fire.
OK, can you talk about the building itself? As a councillor, this building has actually just been refurbished just a couple of years ago. It was a basis of a multi-million-pound refurbishment. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. New heating, hot water systems, windows, and a major refurbishment. And it, at that point, was inspected, and we will have to await the study as to what the cause of this has been.
I mean, we've spoken to one eyewitness. He was very incredibly lucky. He was able to escape the building as the fire was breaking out, according to this eyewitness. And he did say, actually, this isn't anything new to the building. He has actually had to evacuate the building because of a fire before. Do you know of any fires at the Grenfell Tower previously?
This is a very major fire. There may have been individual flat fires, there occasionally are, but I can't comment on that anymore at this stage. And I don't really think there's very much more I can say other than to say that the emergency services are doing all that they can to secure the building and evacuate people to safety. And there's really little more I can say at this stage.
You're back with us on Sky News in North Kensington, just below the Grenfell Tower, which went up in flames at about 12:30 at night. A tragedy beyond words. Hundreds of people who were trapped inside. Emergency services telling us many have been reached, many have been evacuated. Some were still trapped inside, and desperate attempts underway to secure safety for all of those people. Let me talk now and introduce you to Rashida, who is a local resident. You've been following this dreadful event since about midnight. Rashida, tell us what you saw and how you first found out.
Well, around 1 a.m. I was wide awake and I got a phone call from a friend who lives literally around the corner, and she said, look out the window. And I looked out the window and I could just see the fire just blazing away. And I was in shock. I was like, oh my God, because I know a lot of residents that live there. It's highly populated with a lot of families with young children. And automatically I started thinking about, family members, friends that actually live in the building. And then I just went into a state of shock for a few minutes, and then I quickly just got dressed and ran down here. At this point, just before that, actually, I heard fire brigades, and I thought, well, I didn't think much of it because, once in a while that does happen. I made my way down around the area, and there was lots and lots of people. And then I found, one of my neighbours, her daughter actually lives in the building, I think on the 18th floor, and she has 3 young children. So we were really, really panicking at this point and worried.
Have you heard from them? Are they safe?
They're actually safe, yeah. They managed to get out the building. However, we've got another family friend, the parents and 3 children that we've not heard anything from. They managed to make a phone call when it all started, and they said that the fire brigade told them to stay inside and that it would be safe for them to do so. And then the next call that, the family members have tried to call, there's been no answer.
So you're still waiting to hear from this
family? Yeah, we're still waiting. We've not heard from them.
And your brother, you said, lives in the
My
tower
brother
block?
lives on the tower block behind. My sister lives on the tower block behind, so she's been watching what's been going on from behind. I've been watching from this side, and it's just been horrific. You can just hear the screams, which was really disturbing. I've never heard anything like that. You could hear people basically begging for their lives. And it was from further away, and you could still hear them quite loudly screaming, help, help, help us, help. And as you looked up, all you could see was the fire was just raging and raging and raging. It was just uncontrollable.
Now, we spoke to somebody who said it's possible that the fire started because of a fridge catching fire.
That's what we heard.
It's hard to imagine that a fridge fire or an electrical appliance could do so much damage.
If a fridge can do that, I'm shocked, to be quite honest with you. I mean, there was an issue a few years ago when there was a small fire, and there was concerns from the TMO residents regarding this building and the safety of this building. There was a lot of worries And this was one of the worries, that one day something like this could happen.
I've heard another resident, I don't know if it's true, saying there were gas pipes running along the stairwells.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a hazard, put it that way. They recently built some, I don't know what to call them. Yeah, the cladding that wasn't there to start off with, but because they've built a new leisure centre and there's a new school, and I think they wanted to make the building look a little bit nicer than it actually was, and that seemed to kind of just make the fire worse, to be quite frank. I mean, there was pieces just falling from all over.
There's still debris falling
now,
isn't
there
there?
is, yeah.
And just explain to people who are watching from elsewhere in the country and around the world, describe this neighbourhood, describe this community. You said to me, everyone knows everyone.
Yes, absolutely. It's a very diverse area. We have all nationalities, all religions. We all live peacefully amongst each other. There's, not much crime like higher than anywhere else in London. I mean, we can walk around safely late at night and stuff like that.
But it's a tight community. You all know each other.
Yeah, we all know each other. This is the thing. I mean, we all know each other. There's a big, high population of Moroccans, and for some reason, we all live quite close to each other. So literally everybody knows each other.
You mentioned Moroccans. I know you're observing Ramadan.
Yes.
There have been a lot of people I've spoken to tonight or this morning who have said that because of Ramadan, a lot of people were awake, and that would have helped because they would have been up when the fire was raging. So evacuation would have been easy.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, most Muslims now observing Ramadan will normally not even go to bed until like about 2 o'clock, 2:30, until they have their late night last meal and do their last prayer. So most of the families around here would have been awake. And I think even with the noise with the helicopters, it would have brought a lot of attention to a lot of residents, non-Muslim as well, that would have thought, well, something sounds like something's going on that's obviously not quite normal. So yes.
Tell me again, Rashida, about some of the fears that have been expressed by some of the community groups, some of the
Well, we're always worried. I mean, I live on the building just over there, and it's only 3 stories high. My windows, for example, they don't open fully. And I've had concerns, and little thoughts, never thought it would actually happen, not until seeing this, that what if there was a fire? What would happen? How would we get out of there safely? How would our children get out of there safely, our young children? Because this area has a lot of families, as I said, with young children. So that was always, a concern of mine. But you always think, well, it's never going to happen. But today has made me realise it can happen.
I hope that you hear from the family that was still trapped inside. I hope everyone is safe, and our thoughts and prayers are with you. This is Rashida. She's a local resident with friends and family who she thinks might still be trapped inside the tower. Let me hand you over now to Jonathan, who is on a different corner closer to Grenfell Tower. Jonathan.
Let's just turn sideways and go like that. It's probably going to be easier. Hey? Okay.
Good luck. I hope everyone is getting safe. Thank you.
Well, we are hearing that the fire service is going to give us an update in the next few minutes. We're hoping to hear from a spokesperson from the fire service that have been dealing now with this fire for a number of hours. 200 firefighters, we understand, are in this part of West London, 40 firefighters as well, and we know that many people have been taken to hospital. We've had a statement from the ambulance service. This is from the London Ambulance Service NHS Trust. Now, we received this a few minutes ago. It's an update from the Director of Operations, Stuart Crichton. He says we can confirm that we've taken 30 patients to 5 London hospitals following the incident at the Lancaster West estate. We've declared a major incident and continue to work closely with other emergency services at the scene. We have more than 20 ambulance crews here, as well as our hazardous area response team and trauma teams from London's Air Ambulance who travel to the scene by car. Our priority is to assess the level and nature of injuries and ensure those in the most need are treated first and taken to hospital. So we know there have been at least 30 people injured. We don't know whether anyone remains trapped inside the building.